Of course, there are multiple things that we argue about. Things like, so I'm of the attitude, when there's revenue coming in, that we spend
Mhm.
to expand and grow, right? Suraj is a lot more conservative. He doesn't let money go that easily from the company. That's again because of our inherent thought processes and backgrounds that we come from. But at
Uh,
sometimes, I have to defer to his decision and agree to what
mm,
he says. And at certain times, he defers to my decision and what I say, right? So that balanced
mm.
decision making is something that comes, and that's, I think, because of very different thought processes, I would say. Because backgrounds can be different, but people can have different thought processes coming from very similar backgrounds also.
Hi, hello, namaste to all my listeners. I'm your host, Sarthak Varshney, and I welcome you all to the Balls of Steel show, where you get an insight into the business mindset of the entrepreneurs. Dhandho Ni Soch. Our today's guest is Mr. Sreekar and Mr. Suraj Peri. Hi, guys, how are you?
All good, Sarthak. How are you? I think we are separated by thousands of miles, but the wonderful power of the internet gets us to record this.
Yes, yes, yes. How are you, Suraj? I'm good, I'm good.
Doing pretty well, Sarthak. How's it going for you?
It's going great. After a long time, I've got two more people on my show. Like two people combined on the show. And
Mhm.
वैसे बहुत कम होता है यार कि दो लोग साथ में आ जाएं. So बड़ी मेहनत लगती है and it's like a lot of times not both the co-founders are available. So I'm really happy that I have both of you together with me. It's a pleasure for me and I'm looking forward to a very very happening conversation. So guys, if I tell you. Shrikar and Suraj, they are from Hyderabad, okay, and the business name is Gradvine, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, that's right. That's why I'm right on the top of the nail that business name is Gradvine. इसके अलावा मुझे कुछ नहीं पता. Honestly, मुझे कुछ नहीं पता. ठीक है? So we will grill both of them, and we'll see how this thing really rolls out. What is the business all of that about. But before we start, so guys, how has this lockdown been for you? How is this post lockdown period coming out for you?
To be honest, it was quite a bit of a shocker for all of us, both personally and professionally.
Okay.
In terms of business, obviously a huge hit because essentially, despite our model being different, a large part of our business comes from students who are applying to universities abroad.
Mm-hmm.
So, considering travel and considering higher education being perhaps a non-essential sort of service, our business was
Mm-hmm.
greatly hit, but
Mm-hmm.
something clicked, fortunately, and we are a completely online platform where you can interact with mentors. So us being remote and the no requirement for physical counseling to happen really helped our business. And in fact, we hit record numbers once things started opening up a little bit, when people stopped obsessing about the lockdown and started figuring out how to get their life back on track. So June,
Mm-hmm.
July, August, we hit numbers that we never saw in previous years, in fact. So that was quite a surprise. Um,
Oh.
Apart from that, I think logistically it taught us that work from home can really work very well. We really did not expect that. And
Okay.
funny part is, a lot, quite a bit of our staff we hired during the lockdown, and
Mm-hmm.
they went through an entire season with us of intense work, and we hadn't even seen them face to face physically until maybe the first week of January. So yeah,
Oh.
very unique, surprising, lot of learnings along the way. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think no reason to complain. Went very well.
Okay. What about you, Suraj? Wanna add
So,
something to this thing?
yeah, absolutely, man. So, I take care of a lot of the tech sort of stuff for Gradvine. So,
Uh-huh.
in terms of that, it's been a very, forward-looking transition for us. When we started off with Gradvine, the idea of
Mm-hmm.
having a light asset sort of a model where everything was online, including all of
Mm-hmm.
our services, was something that we just came up with from the perspective that, this is a light asset sort of a model. There's no upfront capital investment of any sort in terms of fixed assets like rent or anything of that sort. So one of the biggest
Mm-hmm.
things that we learned from this is the light asset model doesn't really just work, in business as usual cases, but also is a very,
Mm-hmm.
very forward looking sort of a situation for us, where right now our sort of biggest expense is just getting all
Mm-hmm.
of the tech up and running. And it's been a pretty steep learning curve for me personally, in terms of the scale that we achieved through the lockdown. So technically it was a
Okay.
pretty decent sort of a challenge for me, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Like Sreekar
Uh-huh.
was saying, we grew the business pretty heavily as well during the lockdown times, and just work
Mm-hmm.
from home tech and just building the next steps of the Gradvine platform itself. All of these have been things that I've personally enjoyed throughout the lockdown.
Oh, so guys, we have stories of people, who have made it big during the lockdown. That's nice. That's really, really nice. So, I mean, I guess we are on a spree, guys, where, we are getting people on show who have started or who have scaled very well during the lockdown. So recently we had Ela from EduFund. Okay, her business started in lockdown. She started her startup in lockdown while she was in quarantine. So that's again good. You guys are telling me a scaling story. That's again good. So I'm looking forward that it's gonna be great conversation ahead. Okay, okay. So, guys, let me ask you the question properly now. What is the business that you guys are into, because of which we're gonna say that you guys have got the balls of steel?
So, yeah, we essentially, right, to sum it up, we
Mm-hmm.
are almost a matchmaking platform between students and mentors. Now, through that matchmaking, we offer a variety of services.
Mm-hmm.
Primarily, how our business started and what is our major cash cow is college applications. So,
Mm-hmm.
you'd know, right, Sarthak, I don't know if you've applied to colleges abroad or are familiar with the process or anything of that sort,
Mm-hmm.
but essentially, when students have to apply to foreign universities, there is an application process. You have
Right.
to report your test scores, be it an SAT, a GRE, or a GMAT. You have an
Mm-hmm.
application essay. You have multiple application essays in some cases. You need your resume to be in shape. You have interviews in a lot of cases. So it
Mm-hmm.
is a fairly complicated process, and Indian students often turn to advice from people who have some experience. Uh,
Right.
until now, that market has been filled with consultants in India, and
Mm-hmm.
we'll talk about a lot of funny consulting or consultant stories once we get there. But let's just say
Right.
that in terms of accurate advice to get into some really good universities, it was clearly absent here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of students, because of that, weren't applying to the universities that they actually had the potential to make it to. So Suraj went to Carnegie Mellon, I went to Dartmouth, which is an Ivy League, and we did the
Wow.
process purely by reaching out to people on Facebook, because back then LinkedIn wasn't really a thing 6 7 years ago.
Right.
Yeah, we reached out on Facebook, were mentored by them, right? So what we did is, once we were at Dartmouth and once we were at when he was at Carnegie Mellon, we started
Mm-hmm.
cultivating a network of mentors who are at our own universities and even our friends who made it to great places. So today at
Okay.
Gradvine, essentially, if there's a kid who wants to apply to say a computer science program at Stanford, he can get
Mm-hmm.
a mentor or a current student at Stanford doing the exact same course to help him out with the application process. With a click of a button, he schedules a free call on the website. One of our
Mm-hmm.
representatives or mentors who we have hired in house understands the
Mm-hmm.
student's profile and aspirations, and then we link
Mm-hmm.
the student with the mentor for help
Okay.
with the application process, right? So we are eliminating
Okay.
consultants and we are doing peer-to-peer mentorship. That's a significant cash cow for us, and the kind of results we've delivered in that sector is rather unmatched because it's a very genuine, foolproof sort of process. What we also do,
Oh.
Sarthak, in the business today
Mm-hmm.
is
Mm-hmm.
we help out kids in building their profiles right from grade 8. So you have students
Okay.
who are confused about various careers, like do I get
Mm-hmm.
into computer science or do I do medicine, or some people, a lot of people considering the liberal arts right now. So what we also do
Mm-hmm.
is we give them access to conversations with these mentors who pursued various career paths. They
Uh-huh.
understand the mistakes these mentors have made, the good decisions they've made. They understand what the realities of various career paths are, so that students and
Mm-hmm.
parents can make an informed decision over time. And we also offer projects under the guidance of these mentors so that they can get a flavor of what work at a slightly lower level in that field would entail. So we help them
Right.
first of all discover their interests to real hands-on practical experiences, and
Okay.
then post that. We also help them understand how they can build their profile if they're applying for an undergrad right from ninth and 10th grade, which is very, very important. So that's essentially the business that we do. Again, I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't call ourselves a counseling or a counseling service or a consultancy. We are the
Mm-hmm.
platform that brings great sources of information in touch with students in India. What's interesting is because of the model and because of the flexibility of the online platform, we have customers today from 17 countries coming in availing our services. So our big vision
Wow.
for Gradvine is that we see the world outsourcing their IT services to India. With Gradvine, we
Right.
want them to outsource their education consulting needs to India because this is remote. You can get access to mentors all over the world. The medium that makes it happen is based out of Hyderabad, incidentally. So we get customers from 17 countries, and
Mm-hmm.
interestingly, American citizens, American students reach out to Gradvine today to apply to universities in their own country. So that's how the model has scaled, and that's how much potential it has to scale in the future as well.
Oh my goodness. Oh my. Suraj, what would you want to add to it? Or you were gonna say कि श्रीकर ने सारी बात बोल दी?
So he's talked about some of the things that we already do and some of the things that are in the pipeline. The one thing
Mm-hmm.
that I'd probably add to it is the fact that about 2 years ago, we made significant inroads into the undergraduate applications as well. So,
Okay.
how this happened was, first of all, with the graduate applications, because we'd been abroad, we'd seen the entire application process. We had a
Right.
very, very thorough understanding of what it takes to get to a top 10, top 15 sort of a university, and that's
Right.
been some of the cornerstones in terms of the kind of work that we've done. One of the things that we've
Right.
done over the last 2 years is essentially, apart from developing an entire mentor base for the graduate applications parts of it, we've also been able to, from our own network, get a lot of undergraduate mentors as well. So think of
Mm-hmm.
undergrads at places like MIT, Stanford, Harvard, etc., sitting down and coaching someone who's in ninth, 10th, and 11th, building their profiles, figuring out how to set up the entire application itself, and showing consistent results over the last 2 years of people getting into undergraduate degrees at MIT, Stanford, and Harvard. So that is also one of the
Oh.
bigger sort of vertical that we have in house. But apart from all of this, right, the idea with Gradvine, which Sreekar sort of summed it up perfectly, is the fact that we
Mm-hmm.
want to be a platform where, irrespective of what your age is, you could be in eighth grade, you could be far away in your career, trying to figure out what to switch to, etc. So,
Mm-hmm.
irrespective of the point of career you're in, there's always someone who's gone through similar experiences and has
Right.
made mistakes that you would want to avoid. And so it's just
Right.
a call away for you. You can log on to the platform today, talk to someone within the network who's been there
Hmm.
and done that. And that's essentially the biggest value add that we bring to anyone, anywhere at this point in time.
Oh my God. So this is like a peer-to-peer connection, direct university mentorship. That's amazing. I mean, this is the very basic and the smallest terms I could sum it up.
Mhm.
Right. These guys have done the execution, listeners, but this is amazing, yeah. Though why I'm saying amazing, I'll tell you because I have had friends who have applied to universities and they have tried doing not exactly the same stuff, but they've tried the what Speaker did in his time, that like connected with people over LinkedIn or Instagram or whatnot, trying to find the people and learn from their experiences from people who are actually studying there. So having a platform for that altogether, wow, didn't really expect this would work out really well. So guys, kudos to you. This is like an amazing idea that you guys have executed out there. How long has this been there?
So we started off Sarthak part time initially
Mm-hmm.
because, like I
Mm-hmm.
said, we were just very happy to help people out. So we started informally in the years 2015, 2016, where we were right at the end graduating from university and then took up full time jobs. And
Okay.
same with Suraj. But I quit my job post that because I thought this could really scale. And in 2017, we fully incorporated, and we've been functioning
Okay.
as a fully operational company since then.
Oh my goodness, 2017 से 2021 आ गया भाई साहब, 4 साल. of mentorship these guys have been giving. कितने बच्चों का भला किया आप लोगों ने यार, भगवान आपका भला करेगा.
So every year, close to the last couple of years at least, when the volumes have gone up, 3,500 students schedule a consultation with us. Uh, Hello, yeah,
Oh,
can you hear me?
okay. Yeah,
Yeah, all
yes.
right, sorry. Yeah, so 3,500 students schedule a consultation call with us, which our team processes. Out of which at this point we do 500 paying customers a year. Of course, our free
Oh my
consultation
God.
calls often are more valuable than entire counseling processes with typical consultants. So, bhala kiya, I don't know, maybe you could say a vast majority of those 3,500 a year.
But that is like a lot, yeah, a lot. Because I'll tell you, I know about many other institutes, as you also mentioned, many other consultation-based institutes, which help and they have their own team, but then they do not provide such mentorship out there. Right. So this mentorship program definitely helps a lot. Okay. So my goodness, yeah, I'm really happy to be talking to you guys and knowing about this very closely. Now, guys, why don't you know spare me with all the information and all the details that by starting from the very starting point of your journey till the current point at which you are. Suraj, why don't you start this time?
Sure, yeah, absolutely, man. So, typical schooling life, right? So I went to a DAV, which is like a middle class sort of a school giving out cultural values and all of
Mm-hmm.
the good stuff, at least in terms of fiscal conservatism versus socially being open to a lot of different experiences and stuff like that. So the journey for me actually started pretty early when I was in school and stuff like that, when the school gave me opportunities to go out there, participate in a lot of events, etc. And so the network of being able to go to competitions with other school students of my age, etc., that's where the networking aspects of it actually started. And then, like a typical
Okay.
Indian, of course, without thinking too much,
Mhm.
just looking at the trend and family, sort of took up engineering without really knowing what engineering would mean to me. And that is one mistake that I constantly tell my eighth ninth graders to sort of avoid. Just don't get into engineering just because there's someone in the family or someone in your peer group that is taking it up, etc. So from that perspective, just got into engineering, chemical engineering too. That too. I mean, how
Oh
out of
my
the
God.
ordinary, right? At a
Yes,
time when people were taking up computer science or electronics and stuff like
right.
that, I went into chemical engineering just because there were two of my uncles who did chemical engineering and just essentially said, "Scope बहुत अच्छा है."
स्कोप
That's
बहुत
like
अच्छा
the
है, so मैं भी चला गया.
yeah, so that's like the typical non-thinking sort of a mind that just kicked into place just because there was some sort of crude
Hmm,
mentorship within the family. I mean, I'm not.
right,
I don't rue the decision. I don't say it was a bad decision as such because I learned a lot of things outside of class.
right,
Was I a good chemical engineer? Am I a good chemical engineer? Maybe, maybe not. That's up for debate. But
right.
Sreekar and I actually went to the same university for undergrad. He was a mechanical engineer, and I'm sure he will give you a similar line of story or add some more things to it.
Oh,
But
okay.
I think it all started for me particularly back in undergrad. The idea of sitting in classes wasn't something that I was really excited by. I did
Hmm,
not make a lot of out of the classes itself, but I did take advantage of the fact that I went to a premier institute within our state, and so had a lot of outside the classroom activities and opportunities that I took advantage of. One of those
okay.
particularly was that I had the opportunity to start teaching Model UN, not just participating, but also start teaching Model UN to very, very young kids. And
Oh,
that's
okay.
where a lot of my networking ability and the ability to understand what young kids are thinking about, looking at, figuring out in their young sort of careers, etc. That's where the spark sort of was ignited. That's when also I went on a personal and professional journey of my own where I understood that chemical engineering was maybe not the entirety of what I wanted. However, there were
Mm-hmm.
parts of it that I was really interested in. That I could see myself just going to class for those particular courses and subjects. One of them was climate change and energy and all of that kind of stuff. So um, I had the opportunity to intern at the United Nations during my undergrad, where I was the youngest member of a panel which had every single one of them a PhD, just working on a lot of different things with regards to climate policy, energy policy, education policy, even some of them. That's where the
My
idea
goodness.
of Yeah, that's where the idea of combining a lot of different technical concepts that I was learning in college, or learning or just walking through in college, and my true sort of experiential learning stuff. That's where the combination just clicked into place, and I started applying to multiple universities abroad. So I think typical again, if you belong to any of the Telugu states, which is Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, you will see that a lot
Uh,
of students go take the GRE and go abroad for their education, for their master's degrees and stuff. So again, till
right.
that point in time, the plan was to just go with the flow. But then in my third and fourth year of engineering, I was able to sit down with a bunch of different people who had actually been in my footsteps. The opportunities, the internships actually helped me try and figure out a path for myself. And that's where the idea of going abroad, applying to a master's degree, a very, very specialized master's degree too,
Mm-hmm.
in data science plus energy. And that's where
Right.
the whole idea came up. And then we essentially fell into the entire mold of writing the GRE, figuring out the applications, figuring out the essays, reaching out to people, building a very, very strong network in the US, and to some of the other countries that we were applying to, and then get the mentorship, but through a very informal sort of a method, right? We reached out to people, got a bunch of mentorship, and was able to crack some of the top five, top six admits, and then finally chose to go to CMU. I'll stop here. I'll let Sreekar go ahead with this journey, and then maybe we can get back to how both of us sort of started Gradvine and how we've been doing so far.
Okay, sure.
All right,
Shrikar,
so
come
I'll
on.
go now. So
Yes.
school, what do I say about school? I don't remember much about it.
What
But
do
yeah,
you
I
mean you
was
don't
not
remember
the
about the
sort of
school?
kid.
Yeah.
I don't have
Come
too many
on.
pleasant memories, to be honest. I mean, not that I had
Okay.
bad memories, but it was pretty
Uh,
unremarkable because I was a little bit of an unremarkable kid, I think. If
okay.
nobody would really remember Sreekar from school because I slipped under the radar. In fact, that makes me that reminds me of a comment in class where one particular
Uh,
professor was like, I like kids who are very studious. I also like kids who are very naughty. But
uh,
kids who are neither are the ones that need to step it up a little bit, like do something and develop a personality. And
hmm,
the first comment, like one guy blurted out, one of my friends, if you could call him a friend, was, oh
uh,
yeah, then we shouldn't be like Sreekar. And then that point it hit me, yaar, ki uh, अरे कुछ तो करना है, like either you be naughty and you get noted, or otherwise do very well academically. I was somewhere in the middle. um,
hmm.
the naughty attempt didn't work. So I just decided, because I'm a very seedha sort of banda. Somebody who knows me, they'll tell you the same. So yeah, I tried doing well academically since
Uh,
wasn't very successful, but the attempts kept on going. Same
right.
situation, went into IIT coaching like a lot of people do, nothing remarkable there again. But of
Hmm,
course, with the same lack of clarity and not understanding that IIT meant I had to do engineering, which I wasn't certain
hmm,
about.
hmm,
Literally chose mechanical engineering because people told me that it was going to be easy.
hmm.
And
Okay.
again, which wasn't the case. So
Which
big
wasn't the
mistake.
case. Right.
But I
I think that's
enjoyed it, but I don't do anything related to mechanical engineering today.
right. Right.
But essentially, my dad kept saying a lot of times, throughout when I was in school, through high school, all of that, that yeah, if you go to an Ivy League school, that's a great achievement. And at that
Hmm,
point, I just brush it off because Ivy League, admits, when for somebody who's uninitiated, it just seems like a mountain to climb. But yeah, I think college was again, through my attempts of trying giving the GRE, I really wanted to make it to a top-notch B school and study in an atmosphere that was really going to help me grow. and
Mm-hmm.
went through the application process. Decided to keep my GPA up. My GPA and my grades were great during college, fortunately. Got a pretty decent
Mm-hmm.
GRE score. But when I went to a consultant, right, all these
Mm-hmm.
guys were trying to sell me stuff and not give me advice, which
Mm-hmm.
really annoyed me because I went to them after doing some background research. And they were
Okay.
all like, "Na ye university nahi milega. You apply here, 100% admit guarantee." And my argument was, if there's a university that's guaranteeing me an admit 100%,
Mm-hmm.
maybe I don't want to go there. So, I was
Okay.
pushing for the better schools. I just gave it a shot. Applied to places like Duke, Texas A&M, but Dartmouth, of course, Purdue, all places where all of these consultants and all these guys said I had no chance of getting into it. Made it to three
Mm-hmm.
out of the four. So I was sitting on admits from Texas A&M, Penn State, Dartmouth. Had an interview from Duke as well. Sitting
Okay.
on those admits, then I realized that okay, if I just was the regular satisfied Sreekar who didn't want to push, if I listened to these guys and went the easy way, my life would have
Mm-hmm.
been totally different, right? Of course, I did
Mm-hmm.
my engineering management there, and I was admitted with a fellowship to boot, so I was recognized as one of the top three incoming candidates for the year. So,
Wow.
from being told that I can't make it to those universities to actually making it with a fellowship, I realized that okay,
Mm-hmm.
there is something wrong here. I'm going to help kids out. Now, whether it becomes a business later on is a different thing. Fortunately, it did.
Mm-hmm.
But there was
Mm-hmm.
no way that I was going to let students be misled by these sort of consultants, and that's how Gradvine came along. Of course, the business model and all of that is a more boring story, but that's my journey and general motivation, for doing this sort of a business model.
Okay, so you got into masters with a fellowship. My God, yeah, I'm just looking at it and reading it again and again that you got into masters with fellowship, and this is the same Shrikar who was commented upon that we should be like Shrikar. Oh my God! Now you should go
Oh
and
yeah,
tell him
no,
that
no problem. It was
he's
actually quite funny. I laughed at it as well at that point. Quite witty when you think about it. But yeah, just moments that you remember in life.
okay, but yes, now you should go back and tell them be like Shrikar at least. Just just prove it up. Okay. Com- completely understandable. Okay. So you guys have had your fair share of experience, similar experiences, I would say, where you both were like into the same bowls and but just rattling with different consultants and some different application processes which hit you guys, and after which the grad wine happened, and then you guys both went to US and things went down there. Okay, now before we get into the details of the details, why don't you both tell me a bit more about your family background? How's the family's like?
Suraj, go start.
Okay, so I come from a very, very typical. Started my life off. I think we were what I would call a lower middle class sort of a family. Both working
Okay.
parents, but just working to make ends meet. Both
Mm,
academic parents too. My mom started off teaching. She had a master's degree. Both my parents have master's degrees, and she started teaching at a college. She is a chemistry lecturer. No wonder I took up chemical engineering thinking it would be chemistry. But again, don't get me wrong, chemical engineering has nothing to do with chemistry. So if there's anyone who's listening and trying to figure out if chemical engineering is the right deal for you, given your interest in chemistry, it's not. If you like chemistry, go to BSc chemistry. Do not do chemical engineering. So my mom was academic. She taught for a long period of time and then moved to the admin sort of life. She's still on the admin. She's a principal at a women's degree and junior college here in Hyderabad. My dad, on the
okay.
other end, went to IRMA, which is one of the premier back then B schools in India. IRMA was rural management, and he was the batch topper and stuff like that. And then also was an academic, teaches or used to teach until he retired about a few years ago. So a
Mm,
very, very humble sort of a background. I still remember till up to seventh or eighth grade, we were living in a one bedroom house in a pretty decent locality where my school was. And then I think when I hit my 10th grade is when we shifted out from a 1 BHK to a 2 BHK. So I had a room of my own, and that was
Mm,
just the point that I was getting ready to, join IIT coaching and all of that. And so there was a lot of emphasis on, creating at home, creating the right environment
mm,
for me to study, even though that never happened. But yeah, I
right.
mean, very sort of loving parents always encouraged me to go out there and
Mm,
play as much as I could. I think that was a consistent theme during my high school days, but also at the
mm,
same time, not very, very informed decision making. So if there's one thing I would change, I would probably sit down with them myself and then start thinking about, or start indulging in conversations in terms of, hey, these are my interests. What do you guys think I should do? Those are things
mm,
that unfortunately did not happen, that I would probably in hindsight go back and change. But yeah,
okay.
that's it. We so right now my mom's working, my dad's retired. I constantly sort of have these conversations now. Now
Mm,
that there are younger cousins in the family as well, so I constantly have these conversations with them in terms of, hey, what were things that you guys observed when I was younger that could have become a potential career for me and stuff like that. So yeah, that's
mm.
where I come from.
Okay. And what about you, Shrikar?
So again, nothing very interesting. So I don't have any story of a struggle or something that will be interesting to talk about. And I'm not going to pretend also. I think to
Mm,
just sum it up, I've had a very blessed family life, incredibly supportive parents.
mm,
I talk to them pretty much about everything under the sun. So it's a very open channel of communication. Financially, also, we were very well off. So I think I had the freedom to experiment in terms of careers. And
mm,
my dad has been an incredible sense of support, or a source of support for me, rather, because he'd always say that, listen, try doing something extraordinary and fail. It's fine, because I'm there to back you up. But don't
mm,
settle in life, right? But take those risks you can afford to. That's the kind of philosophy that he's inculcated in me. um,
mm,
Again, like I said, through my time at school, where I wasn't a very good student, at one point in time I even failed seventh grade math, which was embarrassing, when I was trying
oh
to
my God.
make that distinction between figuring out whether I have to be excellent in academics or naughty. So like I said, that didn't work
Mm,
out very well. But yeah, he really encouraged me. They didn't even say anything. They just said that, try better next time, it's okay, it happens. And that really opened my eyes that God has blessed me with an opportunity to really excel and given me a very supportive sort of ecosystem, and I'm going to make something of it, right? That
mm,
being said, again, that attitude did not translate into business, because I wasn't going to put up a business that was going to be very, very capital intensive, just because we could get investors, or get money in. We had multiple sources to do that. But I
mm,
was very focused on doing a business with minimal risk, and that's how Gradvine was bootstrapped, right? Surprising how that attitude came along, but because of the support, and how grounded I was because of my upbringing, I just
mm,
decided that Gradvine doesn't need a massive investment, and my thought process has remained in that manner since. When we were starting off the website, we spoke
mm,
to some high flying web developers and entrepreneurs who said, yeah, you need a budget of 80 to 90 lakhs, and it'll take a year and a half to set this Gradvine website up and all of that. And Suraj and I at that point were perplexed, because we were very certain in our heads that this business does not need an 80, 90 lakh or a crore ka website to start off.
mm.
So we kept
Right.
searching until we found a source where the website could be set up for 5 lakhs in a period of 3 months, literally. And we
Mm,
broke even in 2 months, and we've been making profits since. Of course, since then, once there was a cash flow, there's been a much
huh.
more robust and advanced platform, completely transformed to make it. But there's a difference between sinking that amount of money without making any revenue, and actually sinking that amount of money after you're profitable and have a revenue and a customer base, right? So I think that's how
Right.
we, our thought process basically decided that, okay, let's not go for this high flying stuff. Let's be grounded. Let's have confidence in our business model. Start with a minimum viable product, and that's how it worked out for us. And I think my upbringing, my family, my sense of support has really helped me with that clarity of thought, essentially, in my journey thus far.
Okay. 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 So, Shrikar, is your family a business family?
My dad is an automobile engineer. Incidentally, used to work for Mercedes Benz when they came in initially. But
Okay.
yeah, we are into real estate to a certain extent, but again, very conventional business. It's not like setting up a business from scratch or anything in tech. So yeah, we could say business, but very far. I'm very far removed from the kind of business that we are traditionally into, and it's not really a business
Hmm.
that I can take over. Also, it's essentially established and real estate and rental and that kind of stuff. So yeah,
Right.
you could say that I'm doing something very very different from what my family is into.
Okay. 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 So your family is primarily into real estate. I get it.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So nice stories, guys. Nice stories. So, and you both are born and brought up in Hyderabad, right?
I actually wasn't born in Hyderabad. My grandfather was in the railways. So mom was always traveling, and I was born in a small town which has become a sort of a city now, I think, in Chhattisgarh. I was born in Bilaspur, and then both my parents moved to Hyderabad. And then that's how I moved to Hyderabad. All my schooling pretty much has been in the city. All my schooling and college, up till the point that I left for the US, has been in
Mm.
Hyderabad, but I wasn't born here. Yes.
Okay. Okay. And what about you, Shrikar?
A very simple, short answer. Born in Hyderabad, raised in Hyderabad, lived in Hyderabad. Never
Back to
lived
Hyderabad.
outside, except for my education, of course, abroad.
Okay. The next thing is going to be married in Hyderabad, kids in Hyderabad, everything in Hyderabad.
Married in Hyderabad, yes. Incidentally, my wife is from
Oh, you're
Uttarakhand, so
married.
she's Pahadi.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
yeah. I'm married.
Same
I'm
here.
married. Yes. Married very young, but it's okay. Happily so.
Suraj, are you also married?
No, I'm still single, man.
Okay. Single or single?
Whichever way you want to take it.
Okay, okay, okay. I get it. Okay. Now, tell me more about your US life, guys. How was your US life? What all did you guys do there? And what all, like, tell me everything about it. And before we actually jump to US also, tell me about your college life because Suraj gave a good hint that you guys met in college and there were a lot of outside the class learnings that you both have had. So that is a very good hint. So Shrikar and Suraj, why don't you enlighten me more about that?
Sure. So
Suraj, you want to go? Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we were pretty sort of into, I'd say I was very, very into, maybe not Sreekar so much on the policy aspects of it, was for me back then Syria, and the crisis in Syria
Oh
was a
my
big deal.
God,
And
guys.
so because of the fact that I was doing a lot of MUNs from high school onwards, that just continued during undergrad. I
Okay.
had the amazing opportunity to go attend a few model UNs, and my country of choice was always Syria. And
Yeah.
so from there on, it just took off. I think in our first or second year of undergrad, we had the
Huh.
opportunity to set up an entire model UN conference for our undergraduates college, and that was the first time in the city of Hyderabad that a college
Mhm.
level conference was supposed to take place. And that is something that Sreekar and I incidentally found ourselves as the founding batch of, and something that to this date continues on. So these were things that we've
Oh.
essentially sort of started to work on. I more so on the quantitative, on the substantive sort of parts of it, where I tried and understood all of the sort of policies that are happening, worldview, a lot of world affairs, and how certain things could be mitigated and stuff like that. So as your regular geek in terms of being able to spit out current affairs sort of trivia and knowledge and all about the Middle East, essentially. Uh,
Mhm.
Sreekar came in as someone who was trying to figure out the business aspect of it. Do you just want to go ahead and talk about that?
Yeah, I think college was a situation where we honestly kept running into each other in various settings, right? I think my first interaction with Suraj was us competing for the same spot on the badminton team. That was
And
where I
and
first met
I
him.
want to I want to
Uh,
make my claim here that I beat him, but
yeah, that's not true. Again,
As expected,
so yeah,
right?
essentially competing for the same spot on the badminton team. I pursued that professionally for a bit, and Suraj was on all sorts of sports teams. I think he was on basketball,
So, guys,
volleyball.
tell me, do you
Uh,
guys also remember your score? because you guys are talking about on the
I remember beating
Score
him the
would
first
be
time we met, but then after that, I
yeah.
sort of went into a different direction in terms of the sports that I was pursuing.
Oh, I mean, Shrikar, I honestly feel like Shrikar, I honestly feel like Suraj is gonna keep dropping such, sarcastic hints. I've done this on the side. Now don't ask me about it. What I've done here.
Yeah, I told you,
Okay.
right? Once he starts talking, we'll all hope that he shuts up. So that's why
No,
you didn't
no,
have to worry about him being quiet.
yes, go on, Shrikar. Tell me more. Yes. Then,
Yeah, so that's how we started, and first it started off as it was a bit of competition, but then yeah, we got onto the team together incidentally, and then of course he was doing his volleyball and all of that stuff, and eventually we did end up on this model UN committee as well, right in our first year or second year, I think we made it in. So yeah, he was interested in the policy, Syria, and all of that. I found the entire concept a little silly, to be honest, because. I'm more of a pragmatic guy. I think guys pretending to be the delegate of Syria and Israel and whatnot I
uh,
found it a little childish. But I saw a lot of monetization potential here, Sarthak, because that was booming right from schools where
yeah,
parents wanted to spend a lot of money in getting these guys. So while a lot of time this conference was run where kids were getting sponsorships and sponsorships from uncles
uh,
sometimes to run the entire thing. I thought,
uh,
okay, why don't we make money off the students and build a sustainable model for this MUN
wow.
sort of thing, right? So apart from the event itself, we ran stuff like training team stuff where Suraj would go and train these kids for a fee.
Mm,
And eventually they'd come, and because our MUN, CBIT MUN was the biggest in the city, or maybe even in the state at that point, this
mm,
was where they would come and participate to show off their skills essentially. So they were paying us
wow.
their delegate fee. So we are creating a business model where we were making money off the training and money
Mm,
off of the conference budget as well, and we built a
mm.
conference which was profitable, which was quite unheard of at that point,
You guys
because all these
content that was profitable?
yeah, we did
Oh,
a
I was
conference that was
shocked.
profitable because I was like, hey, let's make money off of it because I want to leave, a bunch of money in the bank for next batches, so that they don't have to run around scurrying for sponsorships and stuff. So yeah, profitable
Uh,
business model is what we built through the MUN. And yeah, I wasn't
mm,
really concerned about the debate and the councils and all of that. That's something that Suraj was very good at and he took care of as well. I was more
right.
concerned about the logistics, the operations. Do I get the buses in on time? Negotiating deals for the accommodation, charging the delegate fee, figuring out worst case scenarios in terms of the budgeting and all of that kind of stuff, right? So
Mm,
yeah, that
mm.
business and operation side was pretty obvious right from that MUN sort of stage for me.
ओके सो इसके अलावा कुछ कांड किया बिकॉज मुझे पूरी पूरी उम्मीद है जब तुम दोनों ने मिलकर कोई ना कोई कांड तो किया है कॉलेज में मुझे वो भी बताओ ना लाइक गिव मी दोस
Like, unfortunately, like
स्टोरी
Sreekar said at the beginning of the conversation, right? I think both of us have been so, I would say, Sida Sada. Like,
हाँ
the entire college used to assume that we were these high flying kids, going after a lot of different things in life. But I won't speak for Sreekar here because he's gone out to movies and stuff like that after bunking. But there has not been a single day that I've bunked a class, and every day I've bunked classes. There has not been a single day that I've gone out of college campus in my 4 years
ओके
of undergrad.
ओके
I bunk classes. I go to the badminton court, or I go play basketball, or I'm in MUN meetings, or I'm in one of these debates or anything of that sort. In my 4 years of undergrad, I've bunked.
हाँ
My attendance was always like what 45-50%, which we used to get through just because we knew the physical education guy who would give us attendance for just going to regular sports meets and stuff like that. But I honestly cannot remember a single day that I bunked and gone and went outside of college to do something, not even watch a movie. I wasn't big on
ओ
movies then, I'm not big on movies now, but every single time, every single day, we used to bunk classes and just sit in the canteen or just go play as much as I could. So, not going to find anything controversial during the undergrad days unless Sreekar manages to actually remember something that actually happened.
श्रीकर
There's
what
luckily
कॉलेज
nothing. Like I said, we were very, in that way, very Siddha Sadha. I mean, the typical stuff like bunking and, going for movies and all of that, that's a part of college life, I think.
में
But no, nothing, specifically controversial. In fact, both of us don't even drink and smoke. So, that's how
Yeah.
boring we are. So never got into that habit either in college. In fact, during freshers party, I used to hide in the bathroom because people would
Oh,
force me
what?
to drink. Yeah, so that's how I mean, you could say boring or sida sada, whatever. Nothing controversial in college for us.
Uh-huh. Oh my God. Oh my God. This is like बहुत ही ज़्यादा सीधा साधा. इतना
Very,
I
very.
mean, yeah. But guys, honestly, talking to you about your college life on this part, I'm reminded a lot of my days. I'll tell you how. So first of all, I'm also MUN wala guy. ठीक है?
Mm.
Organized MUN, worked on the business part, and what also worked on the policies. And believe me, on it, Suraj, when I tell you, I have always been the guy who gave Syria's example when I was teaching the students.
Yeah.
लाइक फॉर एग्जाम्पल सुनो, सीरिया को यूएस पे बॉम्ब गिरा देना है, ठीक है, या यूएस को सीरिया पे बॉम्ब गिराना है, फिर क्या होगा, कौन डिस्कस करेगा उसकी पॉलिसी, हम डिस्कस करेंगे.
Yeah.
I had these two countries on my tips every time I was giving these lectures, ठीक है, and organizing MUN, yes, been there also, but I did it in my school days back then. It's a long, 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 long back, but I can completely understand what you guys have gone through. And on the bunking note, Suraj, इस पे भी पता है, I'm just like you, like the honestly, just like you. Never been to class, but never bunked out. Was not even out of the school. So this
Yeah.
happened during my school days. I was never in the class. My teachers were like, Sarthak, kabhi to class mein dikh jaya karo. I guess after seventh, I was never found in my class. Never.
Yeah.
And the days were like there have been days where teachers which were very friendly to me. They were like, "Oh, आज सार्थक जी के दर्शन हो गए हमारे को. Thank you so much. आप class में आ गए हो."
Yeah.
I was doing the very same stuff, like organizing stuff, MUN meetings, and all that stuff. And I did my MUN, I'll tell you, in my class 12.
Oh,
Okay.
nice. Okay.
So I organized it back then and I had the boards. So my chemistry tuition teacher was like, बेटा तुम ना moon पे बैठे रहो. तुम moon करते रहो बैठ के. He would call everyone as moon.
Yeah.
Okay. Like the moon पे बैठे रहो बस. And everyone was behind me like साथ boards and I was totally focused कि नहीं भाई मैंने MUN खींचना है. So being there and I can so relate to you guys when you tell me about MUNs. But okay, great story. And anything that you guys did very well together apart from the competition. अच्छा एक और बात बताओ. This thing happens very commonly that I mean I'll tell you very honestly this has happened with me. Like some of my best friends are the people I used to look down upon when I first saw them. Okay. So they're like my one of my very close friends who lives just besides my house. He's like when I used to see him back in very early ages, let's say class third or fourth, I was like, कौन है ये बेवकूफ इंसान, क्या शक्ल है इसकी. And now he turns out to be my best friend. Did this happen with you both also, कि कौन है ये, इसको बताता हूँ मैं अभी.
Absolutely not, man. I think the rivalry just started off with badminton at first, but then as soon as both of us made it to the team, I think it was just mutual respect for each other. Um,
Okay.
till today, if we play badminton, and we do this quite a lot, when we play badminton, I ask him to play singles with me. He doesn't do that anymore, which is something that I'm always picking him up for. But I think till today that revenge is still not fulfilled. So that's the level at which we are playing at this point. But yeah, it's always been pretty respectful sort of a relationship.
Okay,
It
Shrikar,
was
is
quite
it?
the opposite actually. We didn't look at each other and think like, okay, what's wrong with this guy? ऐसा क्यों है and all of that stuff. No, we'd sit down
Uh-huh.
together and think about the rest of the world in that manner. I think at times,
Yeah.
कि what is wrong with the world? Like लोग ऐसे क्यों हैं? So that's
Uh,
how it was more.
so means you both were like, ये दुनिया इतनी खाप क्यों है, ये दुनिया क्यों दारू पीती है, क्यों दुनिया सिगरेट पीती है, is it like
That is a question that
That
we've often asked. Yes.
मतलब दारू से is not the major issue, but
After Daru.
after दारू की ऐसे क्यों हो जाते हैं?
कभी आओ हवेली पे बताते हैं क्यों. Okay. Okay. So it's like three engineers talking to each other. Chemical,
Yeah.
mechanical, and triple E. I see. Nice. So Shrikar, is there a story for you and your wife as well? Love marriage, arranged marriage?
Oh, love marriage. You're in the same college,
As US
incidentally.
or India?
In India,
I
yeah.
knew
So
it.
in undergrad.
when you said na that Shrika was the one bunking and going out, I knew it. Shrika. So Shrika, if
अरे
I'm
नहीं
right,
यार,
uh,
we didn't start dating when we were in college. We started dating literally 1 month before I left to the US. So some questionable decisions
oh,
थे तब. So uh, yeah, that's how that happened. We were in the same college, we were mutual friends, and then long
uh,
distance for a few years, couple of years,
oh my
and
god,
that's how we got together. And yeah, she's from Uttarakhand, like I said, it's
right.
Pahadi and very different because my exposure
Hmm.
to the north has been very limited, except for travel, of course. So yeah,
Right.
it was a very interesting match. It's been lovely since.
Since we met, it's been on lovey-dovey since we met, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. We are married, so you better hope so.
बेटा वरना वरना शिखर बाद में आके मुझे बोलेगा साला तेरे जूते बड़े हैं मुझे okay okay let's get back to the business then okay guys so now that we are done with the college life all the amazing college life that you guys have had अच्छा एक और चीज मुझे बताओ मेरे को बार बार याद आ रहा था तुम्हारे कॉलेज के हिसाब से was it like were you guys called the duo couple kind of people in college कि भाई श्रीकर जहाँ है सूरज वहाँ होगा श्रीकर को ढूंढना है सूरज को ढूंढना है श्रीकर को पूछो ऐसा कुछ होता था क्या
होता था because lunch break में तो we were always in one spot doing MUN meetings. So if they had to find us anytime between 1 to 1:45, we were outside the bathroom in one of the areas. I don't know why we didn't choose a better place, but that was the only place that was left empty. So yeah, during that spot, yes. But
Hmm.
yeah, other times not really, man, because we had our own things like if I bunked class, I'd go off for a movie or a restaurant or something outside. I'd never be on campus,
हाँ
because
हाँ
why would I? Where Suraj, if he bunked, he was in the basketball court. So in that regard, no, I don't think you'd find us in the same place. But lunch break may during MUN meeting outside the toilet in that one sitting area with our entire bunch, we would always be found.
oh my god nice college fun life huh
Mm.
that's great Okay, so let's jump to your US part now that तो US जाने का डिसीजन दोनों साथ में लिया था या फिर it was like going individually in your head and you landed up in US as well. How
Yeah,
was this?
I don't think we ever sat down and had the conversation at all that we are going to be applying here and here. I had absolutely no idea what this guy had planned for himself in terms of
Uh,
professional life.
uh,
Like I said, I fortunately had a couple of really good internships on the back of a
uh,
lot of good debating and MUN experience, which took me a
that's
certain
right.
path. So I sort of understood really early that analytics and being able to just drive insight from data is going to be
Right,
a skill that is required from all engineers, irrespective of what domain you're in. And
right.
fortunately, that UN internship just re-emphasized and strengthened my conviction of taking up something in the climate change sort of space. So my
Okay.
goals and my stuff in terms of applications and stuff like that, I don't think I ever remember discussing anything with Sreekar in terms of the schools that I was applying to or anything of that sort. And he tells the story of how we got our admits better. So I'm gonna let him do the talking in terms of where we were and how we got our admits and all of that.
So Shrika, are you gonna tell me this thing कि we didn't know we both landed in US and अचानक से हम
नहीं नहीं
न्यूयॉर्क स्क्वायर पे टकरा गए Oh my God सूरज तो यहाँ पर है Oh एक बार ऐसे करा दे
something similar, but a couple of steps ahead before actually landing up in the US actually. So,
Oh
Yeah,
my God
nahi, I mean, we
Shrika come
knew
on
that both of us were applying and
yeah,
taking it very seriously, but
Hmm.
we weren't interacting during the application process whatsoever. Incidentally, when the day I got my admit to Dartmouth, I didn't tell anybody. Or
हाँ
just like about 5-10 minutes since I got that email, sometime in the night, and then at that point, Suraj I think had admits to a couple of pretty
yeah.
decent places, and
Hmm.
we all thought that okay, Suraj just said he's going to be going to these universities, and then he told me that अरे हाँ Carnegie Mellon को भी I've submitted an application, पर वहाँ तो वैसे भी नहीं होगा मेरा, so let's forget about it. But then, he called me one night, just 10 minutes after I received my email from Dartmouth with the acceptance. And,
Hmm.
he said, hey, yeah, I got into Carnegie Mellon. And then I said, oh yeah, I got into Dartmouth, by the way. And then he's like, no, dude, don't, share this moment with me. I called to talk to you about, my admit. So don't give me this crap about
Absolutely.
you getting in as well. So,
And
that's
and
how.
incidentally, I wasn't even in town. I was on VIT's campus. Um,
Oh,
on VIT's campus, I yeah, it was an MUN, but I was also there for a sports tournament which is happening at the same time. So
okay.
this was like middle of the night. Both I called him just to tell him I had gotten in. He gives me the news on the same day, and I'm just sitting there wondering, hey, okay, sure, both of us got in. I think a lot of prep went into it, sure, but it was, I think, in terms of the applications as well, riding on entirety of the MUN and how that played a big part in our lives and all of that. And here I was
Right.
actually doing another MUN. So yeah.
Oh, I get it. I get it. That's great, guys. That's great. मतलब भगवान ने जोड़ी पहले ही बना दी थी कि साथ में कॉलेज गए हो साथ में यूएस जाओगे. That's that's
Yeah.
nice. That's nice. Okay, so now that you both have decided to go to US and everything has happened, uh, why don't you tell me your US story? मिले थे नहीं मिले थे? How far was I don't know where exactly Dartmouth is and where exactly Carnegie Mellon is, to be very honest. नाम सुना है but है कहाँ मुझे नहीं पता. ठीक है, so don't kill me for that. How was your US life, guys? How was
Go
it
ahead.
different? Also? Tell me that also. Like, I want to majorly know the differences in of US shaping your mindset from India.
Uh, it was, little difficult, and I'll tell you, where Dartmouth is because that's also very interesting. So, Sarthak, a lot of
Mhm.
people in the US also don't know how to get to Dartmouth because it's so remote, now. So we have to
Mhm.
literally, change flights, land in Boston, and take a 3-hour bus ride to the middle of a forest to get to Dartmouth. It's literally, the college's motto is, voice calling out in the woods or something of that sort, and the college is literally in the woods. So, if I
Okay.
had to come out of Dartmouth or if somebody had to visit me there, it was quite the journey. It wasn't as simple as, getting on a train or a car or a
Mhm.
bus, to get to me. So, yeah, we didn't meet there. How was life in the US? It was, a bit of a shock initially because of how hectic it is. And people don't understand that, graduate school, in the US can get very, very hectic. Like
Mhm.
literally the first day that I walked into class, you have an optimization class, as a management graduate, and that is straight up Excel model solver and stuff like that. And
Mhm.
honestly, Suraj will talk to you a little bit better about the lack of skill imparted at an undergraduate level. For us, that was left us very ill prepared for grad school. But literally the first
Okay.
day you walk in, he just brilliant professor, absolutely fantastic guys, no doubt. About a
Mhm.
hour and a half class, you get a fat assignment on the first day that you walk into class, and you are
Mhm.
thinking, ये क्या है, कोई introduce नहीं किया, my name is this, I enjoy playing this, ये सब नहीं होता है यहाँ पे क्लास में पहले ही दिन assignment. So yeah, it was a bit of a shock, a highly competitive and stressful atmosphere, but that's what
Uh,
molds you, I think. Apart from
mhm.
that, you love so many aspects of it, Sarthak, because the campuses itself are so stunning, and the infrastructure and the kind of resources that they give you are so
Mhm.
brilliant that your thought process itself changes when you're in that sort of an atmosphere.
Mhm.
It was very intimidating, of course, because a lot of my classmates who were there, even the Indian guys were from places like the IITs, IICT, places like that, and the undergrads were from places like UPenn and all undergrads. So they were already Ivy League grads coming to an Ivy League for a master's, and I'm
Mhm.
from this comparatively much smaller college from Hyderabad.
Mhm.
So yeah, it was a very intimidating atmosphere. Very very stressful sort of atmosphere, but you loved every moment of it. The iron is forged in the heat, right? So we were probably forged in these universities. They've been transformative for us.
Okay. Suraj, what about
Absolutely.
you?
So Sreekar sums it up very, very well, right? He says iron is forged in the heat. That's exactly what happened to me, particularly. I come from,
Okay.
and I'm going to keep referring to this. I know Sreekar will not laugh at this joke because he's heard it a million times before, but I'm a
Okay.
chemical engineer, not a chemical engineer. I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing with respect to chemical engineering. And
Acha
then
नहीं.
These are the kind of PJs I make, man. I'm sorry.
No, it's good one, yaar. Chemical ka makal.
Yeah, so I end up after like 40-45% of attendance in undergrad, I end up at a world class institution, which is ranked number 2 or 3 for the degree that I was going to, and taking
Uh,
courses of a professor with literally 3,000 students in the class in the big auditorium. This is Introduction to Machine Learning. This is my first semester course. I have absolutely no idea what machine learning is, and I end up taking that course, right? The
right.
professor, after the first class, just asks a couple of us to stay back, and I realized that I am the only sort of graduate student who's taken this class. Everyone else is undergrads, and I am one of the only graduate students that he's essentially asked to stay back. He wanted to check
Okay.
with us if we had certain prerequisites or courses that we'd done during undergrad that
Mm,
qualified us to essentially take this course. And
right.
while he's asking questions, he asked a couple of us how our understanding of Excel is, the Microsoft
Mhm,
Excel part of it. I
right.
realized in a class of 3,000 students, he'd set up about individual meetings with 50 of us or something. I am the
Mm,
only one in a class. I was the only one in a class of 3,000 that did not even know how to work around basic Excel. And that was very, very
okay.
embarrassing for me. Having, I prided myself on the fact that I had a 45%, 50% attendance and was able to get through
Mm,
undergrad. But then,
mm,
sahi mein, when I actually landed in graduate school, that's when I
mm,
realized how ill prepared I was to take on such advanced level graduate degrees.
mm,
And he essentially took me aside and said, hey, I recommend taking this particular course, do that, and then come to my course. So I checked out that course, and it turned out to be an introduction to Excel, which was for undergraduate first year, undergraduate freshmen. So I was sitting at 20 years old, I was sitting with 16, 17-year olds in their first year of
mm,
undergrad, but I was in first year of grad school, and that
right.
was just a completely different experience for me. So transformative experiences, and there are two big learnings that I had. One, the
Right.
fact that you are very, very ill prepared if you're coming from India, but also the fact that there is nothing impossible as long as
Mm,
there's sufficient amount of time for you to figure that out. I think
right.
every single class that I've taken from that point on has
Mm,
been a very, very big challenge, and I've learned to dive straight into these challenges. And I am at this point in time in my life not perplexed, perturbed, or even scared of taking new challenges on, knowing
mm,
fully well that I had gone through an experience of that magnitude and how that has shaped me. So learning number one, not scared about literally taking any and all challenges,
mm,
whether that be sorting out or building a website on my own without having any skill. Overnight,
right.
in 15 days, I was able to build something out. Whether it
Oh,
is
wow.
learning deep learning, machine learning, etc., in the first 10 days, and then being able to implement a lot of stuff that in real time could be something that I could implement. Whether it
Uh,
be at Gradvine itself, everyday problems here and there that I can just
uh,
solve because of the fact that I'm not scared of problems anymore. That's been the biggest
right.
learning. The second biggest learning from grad school was
Mm,
how to use Google. Literally a skill that nobody in undergrad in India teaches you. Literally a
okay.
skill that you only master as you keep practicing it. But Googling things has been a life savior for me. Instead of asking people for stuff, the first
Mm,
instinct of mine is always to Google something, figure out a basic understanding of it, and then go
right.
and ask someone. So those were the two biggest things that I took from my undergrad. But there was also significant financial pressure. Like I said, didn't really come from a very, very well-off family, and so
Mm,
loans were a thing, and CMU was very, very expensive. So needed to figure out how to balance the financial aspect of it along with the academic pressure that I had. So I finished
mm,
2-year degree, or back then it was a year and a half degree, in about a year, so that I
mm,
could save a little bit of money, both in terms of tuition fee and in terms of living costs. And so,
mm,
living with that financial stress, along with heavy, heavy academic pressure, was something
mm,
that just essentially gave me this attitude that there is nothing in life that I can't solve if I
Mm-hmm.
just have the basics of it sorted out. So fundamental understanding is something that I went after, and I'm really, really happy to have gone through the entire experience at CMU.
Okay. Okay, so that is like a lot of stuff that you've given, and that's very insightful about the kind of knowledge that listeners, you guys can probably get when you get down to US. No, I mean study from US. Okay, that's one thing said. But I would also like you guys to throw some light and tell me about what did US teach you altogether. I mean, the culture of US and the people of US altogether, and how did your mindset change? Because till now you were in Hyderabad and doing all the things around in Hyderabad, the Indian style. Now you're in US, the
Mhm.
US style. How what was the shift in your mindset?
Yeah, I think
So I think
I
you go
have
ahead,
a
Gradvine, sorry.
yeah,
Yeah.
I have a very, very funny anecdote. So for people that don't know, Carnegie Mellon is in Pittsburgh, which is a city, which is a big size city right outside the east coast of the US.
Okay.
So I was taking a flight from Hyderabad. I went to New York City, which was my first ever flight outside of India. And then there
Mm-hmm.
was a connecting flight from New York City to Pittsburgh. The Pittsburgh airport is a little way away from the city, just like you would imagine Bangalore, right? Bangalore's airport
Mm-hmm.
is outside the city. Of course, Bangalore and Pittsburgh, there's absolutely no comparison in terms of the infrastructure and stuff. But
Right.
Pittsburgh, the airport is outside the city. We took a cab. We were about three or four guys that were traveling from Hyderabad to go to CMU, and there were what we took a cab to get from the airport to our accommodation within the city. There's this
Mm-hmm.
tunnel that you essentially pass by.
Okay.
As soon as you're out of that tunnel, before the tunnel, it's all forests. And as soon as you're out of that tunnel, it's skyscrapers, the size of which India has never seen. And this was
Okay.
my introduction to the city. We get
Okay.
off at a traffic intersection, we get off the cab, are hauling
Mm-hmm.
our luggage, and we had to cross the road.
Okay.
In India, what do? You look both ends and you cross the
Mm.
road.
Right.
In the US, people are polite, or at least give you the perception that they're polite. So there were
Okay.
cars, and right at the intersection where we were waiting to, we were looking both sides and just waiting to cross, cars
Mm-hmm.
come up and stop at the intersection. And I'm perplexed. Like in India, cars don't stop for anyone. Like they will run over you, they will not stop for you, do anything for you. Car, there was a car that came and stopped, and we had
Uh,
absolutely no idea why he had stopped. So we didn't do anything, we were just standing there. And then
yeah.
another car behind him came and stopped behind him, another car. So we essentially created a mini traffic jam, and that guy is honking, and I'm trying to sit and figure out, I can't hear a single horn. This is the first horn that I'm hearing. I have absolutely no idea why he's honking. He was essentially asking us to cross the road, apparently.
Okay.
And then I realized the next day that it's a right of way. So you essentially let pedestrians cross first, irrespective of whether you're in a car or in a bus or whatever. At the intersection, pedestrians have right of
Okay.
way. Pedestrians are supposed to cross first, and only then can the cars go. So such a completely different experience on the day that we landed. We had absolutely no idea what to expect, and this sort of
Mm-hmm.
put things in context and perspective for me. People are open to new
Mm-hmm.
ideas. People respect the rule of law. People understand why there are certain things in place. And the
Mm-hmm.
system itself is very fluid and very dynamic, adapts to
Mm-hmm.
changes very quickly, and is
Mm-hmm.
very people friendly. I think that was a big, big culture change from, just crossing roads in India where I literally have to, just swerve cars and everything, to
Uh,
someone coming and being polite enough and stopping in front of me,
mm.
making sure that I cross the road completely, not even to one side of the road, completely, before moving on and actually going away from the traffic light. So a brilliant, brilliant experience just on the first day, which is continued on throughout my journey, both at CMU, at Berkeley, as well as a couple of the other cities that I've lived in California.
Okay, okay, okay. So you guys have had a good Share. Okay. Take it. So now, as I remember, Suraj, Sreekar also mentioned that Sreekar probably took up a job for some time after the masters, and then he left and came finally into Gradvine and kicked it up. What was your thing? Did you also take up a job and before fully putting your time into Gradvine, or you were totally into Gradvine since beginning?
No, actually, I worked for longer than Sreekar did before jumping in full time.
Huh?
So after I graduated from CMU, I went to the University of California at Berkeley. So I
Mm-hmm.
was working with two parties essentially. One was the governor in the state of California. Government back then it was the governor Jerry Brown. I was working in
Mm-hmm.
his office as well as at the University of California, Berkeley, as a policy analyst doing a lot of studies in terms of climate change policy, etc. So I spent a
Mm-hmm.
couple of years at the university and with the governor in California, high functional, high impact sort of studies and policy decisions. So I got a complete understanding of how the US at least the state level, the US made
Mm-hmm.
policies, how the entire policy making sort of spectrum went through, how individual stakeholders give a lot of input, and how a
Mm-hmm.
policy actually becomes law, how a certain draft becomes law. So I was working with senators, the governor, with academics as my joint appointment. So that was a very, very high impact, high functional sort of a role. I
Okay.
worked there for about a year and a half, 2 years, and then I moved
Mm-hmm.
on to a company called Itron. Itron is
Okay.
the biggest smart meter manufacturing company in the US, and I was leading. I was working in their data science division, leading a lot of efforts in terms of data-driven energy analytics and stuff like that. All of this was
Mm-hmm.
happening while I was juggling a lot of the work that I was doing for Gradvine, both in terms of setting up the tech, in terms of setting up some of the operations, the initial students, the mentorship for them, a lot of the advising and all of that. So I was doing Gradvine Indian Standard Time during the day, and I was doing
Mm-hmm.
my core full time role California time during the day. So I was working about 16, 18 hours pretty much every day for
Mm-hmm.
a good 3, 4 year time before I
Mm-hmm.
moved back to India in 2018, and I took
Okay.
over operations in 2018 here in the Hyderabad office.
Okay. 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 And at US, while you were there, was there a period where you left all the jobs and worked full time in Gradvine, or you full dedicated your full time directly in Hyderabad?
No, no. The intent was once we had set it up in a way that we could sustain ourselves financially if I moved back, that was
Mm-hmm.
sort of a conscious choice then. I think once I sort of figured out all of and Gradvine was growing too. We had moved from doing single digit sort of students getting really good admits to we had started doing hundreds already. So
Oh.
Gradvine had moved up, scaled pretty significantly, and it was just time for me to just come on board and grow it to the next stage. And that was
Mm-hmm.
where the move to a full time back to India sort of started. So
Okay.
while I did not leave all of my US commitments, I still consult for them once in a while, depending on the kind of projects that are coming, etc.
Mm-hmm.
I am working on Gradvine full time. I've been working on Gradvine full time from what 2018 July August.
Okay. And Shrikar, which place did you work at?
I came back to India to work. I interned for a short period at Coca-Cola for a bit. I
Okay.
was doing operations related work there. Then came back to work for an big IT multinational based out of Hyderabad known as Cyient. Which does a lot of great work in the field of engineering services. Of course, I wasn't involved in the core engineering. I was more involved in the strategy and business development side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, worked there, worked with a lot of senior leadership, preparing sort of sales strategies, pitch decks with them. Enjoyable
Mm-hmm.
experience, learned a lot from it. I don't know how good I was at my job. Again, I don't think I was very good at that. I don't know if I enjoyed it that much as well. But yeah, science taught me a lot in terms of organization structures and how managers deal with employees, which is a huge part when you're starting up as well. Some of the learnings that I had at Scient, while dealing with people, and how I had a fantastic manager there. So understanding how to connect with people, make them feel comfortable, help them perform, and get the best out of them is something that I learned from the leadership there at Scient. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that little bit of corporate experience in India is sort of important before you're starting up, because it's people who drive your business. If you're getting the best out of the people that you're hiring, and if they're working in the right mood and in the right spirit, that
Mm-hmm.
definitely aids the organization to a great extent. And we are fortunate to have a wonderful bunch working with us at Gradvine right now. But yeah, those management skills, organizational hierarchy, all of those nitty gritties are something that I picked up during my year at Scient in Hyderabad.
Okay, 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 okay. I get it. So now there's this one question that I really wanna know and get your perspective on, guys. Is that Suraj, sorry, Shrikar, you already mentioned that you are blessed with a family, like a well-off family, I would say. So I would perceive, and let me know if the perceivance is anywhere wrong. Okay, I would perceive that for you to go out in US and study wasn't that big of a deal. It wasn't that a problematic thing where you had to take up loans and work for it. Was it, or did you take up loans and manage stuff? How was this thing for you, the financials?
No, I didn't have to take a loan, and that's why even after the degree, I was free to make choices without any financial burden. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why I always keep stating that yeah, I did not take money from multiple sources for Gradvine, but the reason
Mm-hmm.
why Gradvine is a reality today is also large credit to my parents and my background, because there was no financial pressure and I had the freedom to choose and go in any direction. No pressure of
Mm-hmm.
a loan sitting on my head. So that
Mm-hmm.
played a huge part.
Okay, okay. What about you, Suraj? Since because you
So I
mentioned that you had a full
yeah,
background, so what was the thing?
I did have to take a loan. So again, financial hardship existed for me even before I went to CMU. So
Mm-hmm.
for CMU specifically, like I said, it was a year and a half degree. It was supposed to be 3 or 4 semesters. And
Mm-hmm.
just convincing my academic advisor and taking a bunch of different courses, I was able to just finish that off in 2 semesters, bringing the tuition fees down. Even with
Right.
that, I did have a significant amount of loan, and therefore my choice of working in the US, making decent amount of money in order
Mm-hmm.
to be able to pay off the loan, and then having the independence and the financial sort of luxury to come back to India. At least in the starting phases of Gradvine, we were sort of, I mean, we always are a bootstrap company. So
Mm-hmm.
the ability to, just take financial limitations and succeed well within those limitations has been something that
Mm-hmm.
has been ingrained because of my experiences of having gone through significant financial hardships both during my undergrad as well as my grad school. So I used to work during my grad school at the library, and
Mm-hmm.
I picked up the graveyard shift, which is essentially 11 p.m. to 3:30 a.m. in the morning, because
Okay.
that paid significantly better than the normal regular shifts. So on
Oh.
top of yeah, when you're doing the late night shift, you get paid. I remember the minimum wage back in Pennsylvania at the time was $7.50 and
Mm-hmm.
an hour. And so if you did the graveyard shift, you would get up to I want to say $9 or $10 an hour. So back then, that was significant amount of money that helped me sort of not depend on my parents for any living expenses, and the
Mm-hmm.
tuition fee was something that I was funding through education loan that I'd taken up in India.
Okay. Okay. I get it. So, now that you guys have mentioned that, that Gradvine is completely bootstrapped, and you guys have had. So, I would say that honestly, on the financial terms, you guys are poles apart. Okay, Suraj, you have seen the
Sort of, yeah.
hardships, right? Shrikar, you have seen the luxuries, and you haven't felt that pressure. So, I want to know that how has this amalgamation of being poles apart helped you guys during the bootstrapping of Gradvine?
I think
So
it was very, very important because we come from very, very different sort of circumstances and backgrounds. I think we complement each other very
yeah.
well because of that, right? Look,
Mm,
we work in collaboration. I have my strengths, I have my weaknesses. Suraj has his strengths, Suraj has his weaknesses, and I
right.
don't think as co-founders we've had too many conflicts or loggerheads, honestly, right? Because I think we've
Mm,
been mature enough and we've known each other long enough to understand each other's limitations, and we
mm,
always try and fill those gaps, both in terms of thought processes or whatever, right?
mm,
Essentially, I understood that, and during the first year and a half where I had to quit my job and take this up full time, I was very clear that I was going to be the guy who was going to do it, because
mm,
I didn't want Suraj to go through that because it's not fair, and honestly the risk was a lot lesser, right? And
yeah.
also there was that trust factor, that when things started going well, that he was going to back me up and show up, and that's exactly what he did, right? And
Mm,
that's a level of trust that only builds over time. Of course there are multiple things that we argue about, things like, so I'm of the attitude, when there's revenue coming in, that we spend
mm,
to expand and grow, right? Suraj is a lot more conservative. He doesn't let money go that easily from the company. That's again because of our inherent thought processes and backgrounds that we come from. But at
uh,
sometimes I have to defer to his decision and agree to what
mm,
he says, and at certain times he defers to my decision and what I say, right? So that balanced
mm,
decision making is something that comes, and that's, I think, because of our very different thought processes, I would say, because backgrounds can be different, but people can have different thought processes coming from very similar backgrounds also. But
Yeah.
I
right.
think that's a very good balance that we've had. But one core thing, Sarthak, that both of us constantly believed in, and we didn't go into this entire hype of the startup world. I'm sure you'd have seen so many
Mm,
incubators, conferences, funding, Series A, Series B, flying high. Our entire concept was, let's run it like a business, let's focus on profitability. Our business model and unit economics should be very, very good, and the company
mm,
should add value at every stage to a customer. That's
right.
what we were very, very certain about. That's one thing where we both agreed upon, that we build a business that is profitable and not just create fluff and create a perceived value to the outside world, and
Mm,
do a very glamorous sort of startup. That's what we tell our employees as well. But
mm,
yeah, it's largely been because of our very diverse backgrounds, very different thought processes, finally a very sort of balanced outlook that's worked for the company. Now I don't know, I can't jump the gun and say it's worked, because there's still huge journey to go ahead, but so far
mm.
it's worked well, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell me, add to it.
Yeah, yeah, man. I mean, there are a bunch of decisions, right? That day-to-day sort of decisions. Do we spend on this versus do we spend on this, because budgets are limited? And I am always on the conservative end of it. I am always like, hey, if an investment doesn't get me this return, it doesn't
Uh,
make sense for me to invest.
right.
Certain things that, so Sreekar is a much more long-term sort of a thinking guy. I am
Mm,
much more in the day-to-day sort of operations, right? So he thinks about things like branding, he thinks about things like marketing, and just getting the name out and all of that. Those are
mm,
not things that I understand very, very well, and therefore I
okay.
let those decisions just rest with him. Like I put my
Okay.
point across and just tell him, okay, sure, I hear him out, I sort of try and figure out where he's coming from. But
Mm,
those are things that I defer to his judgment on, given the fact that he's demonstrated a series sort of decisions that have worked
mm,
out very, very well for us. So I defer to his
okay.
judgment in terms of the bigger picture sort of things. Do we spend here on branding versus marketing and stuff like that? Some of the daily
Mm,
day-to-day sort of stuff in terms of trying to figure out employees and figuring out where we'll get them from, and a lot of those sort of things. All of those are things that I've had a much bigger sort of a connection network pool, etc., and I cut corners here and there just to make sure that we are within budgets and all of that. So
mm,
that has been a balance, like he said, that has worked out very, very well for us so far. And hopefully, touch wood, again, we keep going in the way that we are going. Of course, tweaks here and there are mandatory, adjusting along the way is mandatory. But I
mm.
think as a theoretical and practical sort of an application, it's worked out very, very well for us so far.
Okay, okay, okay. I get it. Okay. The next thing that, obviously you guys have given me an insight about the amalgamation and how it has turned out for you guys and how you guys are making the best out of it, right? But then the other question that really comes up to me is, how did you guys even decide? I mean, see, the point being that I'm saying is that, Suraj, you don't have a business background. I mean,
Mhm.
I've been trying to find from your background, where does
Yeah,
the seed of business lie? As you mentioned, your
yeah,
father
man.
is a teacher, your mother's been a teacher, and
Yeah.
which we can completely understandable. So, if is I would before I actually place my question, would you want to tell like whom did you really see in your family from where I can say that okay, Suraj, this is where you would have picked up business from.
Yeah, man. Unfortunately, that's a question that I ask myself and without any answer, particularly. So there isn't, yeah, and I'm going two, three levels up in terms of my family, right? There's not a single person that has started a business of their own. They've always been employees of different and in different capacities for different companies. So
Okay.
the idea of starting up, working for yourself is a very alien concept to me. The reason
Okay.
why I went to the US was when I went to the US, it was a very, very simple sort of a thought process for me. I
Uh,
will go to the US, I will study at one of the best places, I will get the skill, I will get my job, and I will
mm,
slog it out in the US till I sort of settle down. Entrepreneurship is not something that was ingrained in me, or wasn't even sort of constant thought that I had. I've always
mm,
come from a background of problem solving. I've always wanted to solve particular problems, challenges, etc., within either the energy space, the healthcare space, or the education sector. Those are three sectors that I'm heavily interested in. And I've always
mm,
thought of myself as someone who can solve problems within these three sectors. Now,
right.
entrepreneurship just happened not by choice, but that was something I always had side hustles on because of the financial hardships that I went through earlier in my life. I
Mm,
always had side hustles. In my undergrad, I was constantly hustling to, train, teach. I was working part time for multiple different organizations. I was writing content. I was taking training sessions. So there was always a constant stream of income, which
mm,
I kept up by helping students out with application processes and etc. while my time at Carnegie Mellon, right? So
okay.
I've always had side hustles, but I never, if you asked a 16-year-old me or even a 20-year-old me if I'd have a company of my own and work for myself and stuff like that, I'd have laughed at you. This wasn't an idea that was ingrained in me from family or any of my crow's sort of circle, etc. This was something
Mm,
that took off because of certain very, very strong fundamental reasons which have
mm,
helped me take the plunge into starting up and coming and starting my own company and working for myself and the betterment of the employees that I have. Now, if you ask me if I'll ever go back to corporate, I'd probably laugh at you. It's
laughing.
come to a stage where I can't imagine myself not having the freedom that I have to make quick decisions, fail fast, reiterate, move on, get to something else, keep solving. I can't imagine myself in any other setting now. But the journey
Right.
from being able to, never having thought of entrepreneurship or working for myself to now where I can't go back to the corporate world, that's been a phenomenal sort of a learning curve.
Okay, okay, मतलब मेरे भाइयों और सुनो सारी लड़कियों ठीक है बट ऑनेस्टली यहाँ तो मेरी खिल्ली उड़ा दी है सूरज ने had you asked me during my early 20s you
Yeah.
are you become an entrepreneur I would laugh you out if you ask me to would you become go to back to corporate now I'd laugh you out मतलब मुझ पे हंसी उड़ा के बात
Yeah, man, because it's funny. I get questions from people now. We have a bunch of advisors and stuff like that that we sort of interact with and all of that. And then they keep asking me, "Hey, are you planning to go back to corporate at any point in time? Do you think you could, gel well?" I'd be a terrible fit for corporate right now. Like the pace at which we work, I think I'd be
हाँ
strangled in corporate. I'd take ideas to my manager if I had one overnight. I'd sit with them if I asked for time at 3 a.m. or something like that. that is not something that I essentially get.
Right, right,
Yeah,
right, right. That's the part of the startups, dude. Okay, guys, this is where I would say this is exactly what happens in a startup, and that decision making is very quick. Okay, if you have an idea, bring it to the people, do it. Doesn't really matter that what position you're working at. There
correct.
might be CEOs, there might be CXOs even in a startup, but in many startups, people are very, very open to ideas, and they want to see the ideas and they want to execute them because that's where innovation also happens, right? When you
Yeah,
come down to corporate, they have a hierarchy set up, they have certain procedures set up that have to be followed. Okay, so now it comes down to how these procedures sometimes followed in a startup and how sometimes these are not followed in a startup. But
yeah.
in a startup, the
You
risk
break
factor is
things.
always
You break
yes, you make
things. You break them fast. You fail fast, and then you just go from there. And
right.
again, this goes back to a learning that I had during my time at both CMU and the other jobs, right? So
Mhm.
the biggest learning is I'm not scared of anything now. Like
Right.
tomorrow, if I'm failing at a huge sort of a thing, that's still fine by me. I am
Mm,
absolutely fine failing. I have
mm,
lost the fear of failure now because I have failed so many times in my life so far. I failed multiple times, both and embarrassing failures. So many embarrassing failures that I've become attuned to failure now. Failure is not
right.
something that I'm scared of. Failure is not something that I'm, what I shouldn't take that risk just because I'm going to fail.
Mm,
That mindset, the first day that I got to CMU and my professor told me to sit with a 16-year-old, that
uh,
mindset just switched, changed. I am no longer afraid of learning new things at a pace that is, I would say, faster than average. I am no
right.
longer afraid of taking on things that I have absolutely no experience at. And I'm no
Mm,
longer afraid of going out there and taking responsibility when I have failed and figuring out what I need to do so that I
mm,
don't fail the next time around on the same thing. So that's
right.
been one of my biggest sort of learnings over the journey.
That's great. So, guys, if you look at Suraj's life as of now, it's majorly the need to fulfill the financial strains. Okay.
Yeah,
Next thing, the attitude of solving problems, and what else? I guess these two have been the major stuff. Plus, definitely the helping nature because the way I'm looking at Suraj right now, he has been completely the teacher guy who wants to teach, work around policies, make stuff happen, solve the problems, and all that stuff. So these three things actually add up for Suraj, which makes him an entrepreneur, and the very core being the financial constraints. Okay, so this is something that I would say for Suraj has worked out to turning him an
yeah,
entrepreneur. Now let's
yeah,
get to
absolutely.
Sreekar. Sreekar, you've been from a business background. How was your mindset shaped towards being an entrepreneur? Because your father has always been supporting you, telling you to not to settle for less, do something extraordinary. So, do you really think so that that extraordinary had to come through entrepreneurship, or working at some really big company, like giving out new ideas, or maybe creating something good, or maybe just being like Sundar Pichai, just to quote him, right? The way he has had his vertical up. So, I would say that did you really feel that for that extraordinary, I have to take up entrepreneurship like any point in your cycle or in the journey as of now?
I did, and while I did consider a path at corporate and growing, right? For me, it was, when you say do something big or things like that, it was more about the impact. So
Uh-huh.
I wanted to have an impact on people's lives, right? And
Mm,
sure, that can happen at a corporate when you grow, but how much of impact are you going to have potentially during your first few years, right? So for me, if I'm not driving value at every given stage, if my inputs are not having a direct impact on people's lives, that sort of leaves me very dissatisfied. So I realized at that point that okay, entrepreneurship is the way to go. And Sarthak, if you want to create that impact also, right, it's not an
mhm.
easy path because there are going to be detractors all along
Right,
the way. The
right.
first set of detractors, initially when we are starting out, bootstrapped small, we didn't have made big office setup, nothing fancy. Were people from the outside. People like, hey, ये ऐसा छोटा क्यों कर रहा है business? Start this, start a restaurant, build a building, that kind of
Mm,
stuff. That was the kind
Hmm.
of circle that I was exposed to. And
Right.
why are you doing this? 5 lakhs investment, small business, you're never going to go. I got aise tane to bahut, had to face, essentially, right?
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
I was certain about the impact that I was going to create, and this was the way I was going to do it, right? Chota business, bada business, kuch nahi hota hai. It's about bada impact or chota impact, right?
Hmm.
Gradvine, I can confidently say to you, and you'll see it from our customers and whatever it is, it's changed lives.
Right.
We've put people, again from a lot of backgrounds, from more lower middle class families. We gave them the power to dream, and today they are earning 150, $160,000 a year, living
Hmm.
in right in the middle of Manhattan, or in Cambridge and Boston, or in San Francisco downtown, right? We've
Hmm.
changed their lives because we gave them access to the right advice. So now I ask the people who said chota business kyun kar raha hai,
Hmm.
that's precisely what I tell them. Look at how I've changed lives, right? And also, we are making
Hmm.
a lot of money now, by the way. Thank you for that, initial bit of criticism. So that was the, first thing, right?
Right.
That was, one thing. The second set of Tane Sarthak that, we had to face, on this journey, and, again, why I'm, very proud of the impact is, parents who would speak to us, giving us advice. And the constant thing was, Are, you went to Dartmouth, you went to the US, why did you come back to India? You could have been earning millions there, right?
Hmm.
And again, for a lot of people, if you were earning millions in the US, and again, to
Hmm.
come back to your question, that is, doing something big, right? But not for me
Right.
again, because where's the impact? I'm earning and making money for somebody else. How many lives am I touching? So that from
Right.
people here, why did you come back to India? Why are you doing business? You could have stayed and done a job there. That was something that we had to face a lot. Um,
Hmm.
Third thing, and then about impact, and what are some of the challenges that we faced on this journey, and why I chose this path, was from so-called pseudo entrepreneurs, I call them, who
Hmm.
again do a lot of talk, and I'm sure you'd have run into a lot of people. Do a lot of talk about funding, and give dole out advice, and stuff like that. So I had a lot of people who were at a similar stage. Again, the same thing, like, oh, why don't you raise $1 million? That's so easy to raise. Continue your business. Why are you doing it small time and stuff like that? Had to
Right.
face a lot of them as well. And these guys, forget about raising money, their business ideas tank within a year, right? So you
Right.
face all sorts on this journey. It's not easy at all. There are, hurdles all along the way. But for me,
Hmm.
why did I choose entrepreneurship? It is because at every stage I was impacting lives. I was hiring, right? I was giving people
Hmm.
jobs. I was being, a provider of jobs and enabler, at whatever scale, even at a small scale. But that was something that I was doing, right? Very
Right.
recently, we had a lot of people, including accountants who are out of work, Sarthak, because of the pandemic. We were able to
Hmm.
hire them because Gradvine was sustaining because of the business model we built, despite the bad
Right.
months, right? Now that
Hmm.
gives me an immense sense of satisfaction when I go to sleep at night, that my
Hmm.
employees are looked after well. We didn't cut a single person's salary during the lockdown. We've had people who
Okay.
are out of jobs who could turn to us and get an opportunity, right? That
Right.
for me is, doing something big and satisfaction, Sarthak. So it's not about the money. We are making the money as well, but impact. How
Hmm.
many people's lives have you touched? How many people's lives are going to touch in the future? How many jobs are you going to create? It's not just
Hmm.
the talk. Our on-ground game in that regard has been very strong, and that's what makes, I think, both of us happy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. पता है whenever Suraj you say something ना honestly मुझे हर बार लगता है you're gonna say again. Sreekar has summed it up very well.
He does a good job at it, man. So that's how the partnership works as well. I put together all of the initial drafts of emails and stuff like that. Bunch I work on a bunch of students and all of that, and then he comes and ties it on the bow, and we get in. That's how the partnerships has worked. So I'm happy. I'm happy playing second fiddle and just getting a lot of the stuff done so that he can put the bow.
My God, what? This is like every time Shrikar says something and then you come up and say, I'm like, अभी सूरज फिर से बोलेंगे. He has summed it up very well. No, but honestly, Shrikar does sums up things very
Yeah.
well. Yes, honestly, I will have to give that to you, Shrikar. Good
Thank
job.
you so much.
Okay, so guys, this definitely gives us an insight that how you guys stepped into entrepreneurship, right? But if I have to look at it from the starting point where you guys decided to help others, right? did you guys really think that this is gonna become this big, or did you guys think that you would be turning this into a proper business after some time?
The idea
So
was always there. Okay, go Suraj, go Suraj. Sorry. Yeah.
let me specifically tell you how I got started, and then we'll tell you how the company got set up and how we've come to this stage.
Mm,
Even when I was in third year of undergrad, and this is
mm,
the pre-final year, there were a
mm,
lot of my seniors that were applying to colleges because
right.
of the fact that I went to a pretty good middle class CBSE sort of school where I
Mm,
participated in a lot of debates and writing competitions and stuff like that. My writing skills were pretty above average, sort of, right?
mm,
So I was able to help a lot of seniors of mine with
mm,
their applications, just giving them advice. At that point in time, mind you, I had absolutely no idea about the application process itself, but
okay.
I had very, very specific knowledge on how to portray yourself, how to
Mm,
essentially bring out the best of all of the experiences that you've had, how to talk
mm,
about the results of things that you've done in terms of internships or projects or anything of that sort. And those are
mm,
things that I critically understood. And so I knew the fundamental blocks of how to write good application material. So
mm,
I was helping on the side again. Like I said, I hustled, I needed money, I was helping out a bunch of seniors with their application processes, etc. That is
right.
something that I did for myself, got in, and then I helped a bunch of juniors as well during
Okay.
my time at CMU.
Right.
Um, that was when I could see how this could become something that was much more than a side hustle. I could see
Right.
how I could just see the total number of students that were applying, and this was
Mm,
the lowest hanging fruit for us. Then we sat down together and figured out what other verticals exist, how to do the unit economics, the business plans, and all of that. But
mm,
initially, for me particularly, and Sreekar will have a different idea and a version of how it started for him. But for
mm,
me particularly, it started out as a side hustle, which is now my main hustle.
right. 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 What about you, Shrikar? Come on.
Mine was a lot more structured, Sarthak, to be honest, in terms of how this idea came about, whether it can be a big business model. And it also came through a lot of validation from external sources. So,
Okay.
incidentally, Gradvine, the initial seed and, the idea that it could be a business started off for me only at Dartmouth. Because until then,
Mm,
because, once you have made it to an Ivy League. Within college, a lot of people start approaching you. People from outside also get to know, and they start getting in touch with you, right? So that
right.
helping was always going on, and I was giving them advice. But like I
Right.
said, I was admitted to Dartmouth with a fellowship known as the Conrady's Distinguished Fellowship, right?
Yes.
So the thing with that fellowship was that you're paid money. Of course, you're funded for a period of a year, and decent
Mm,
money at that, to come up with an
mm,
entrepreneurial idea and present it to the Conrady's family during a review committee before you graduate, right? So this was in parallel to my education, my projects, my experiences, and all of that.
okay.
So this was the idea that I had to come up with, and that was what the fellowship was for, right? So there was a fixed deliverable during my time there. That was when
Okay.
Suraj and I sat down. Key, okay, how do we build this into a business model that is sustainable? And
Okay.
again, very intimidating stage, because the people who are reviewing were guys who founded multi-million dollar companies, people who are on the board of places like Harley Davidson and all that, right? So
Oh my God.
when you're
Okay.
pitching a business model to them, your hand shivers a little bit, because you can't really spew crap there. They're going to
Mm,
take you on pretty much. But we
right.
did build a model in conjunction with Suraj. We had a couple of other dear friends back then as well, who helped us out. Pranav certainly comes to mind. If he's listening, and he'll be happy. I hope that I'm still thankful to him. But yeah, essentially, when we were coming up with that idea, and then I presented it to the Conrady's fellows, talked to them about the business model and how I pitched it was, this is essentially a Tinder for career counseling, right? And the initial idea for Gradvine was, that, right? You do matchmaking, you get advice from a person. That's how fluid the platform is going to be. So the
Right.
vision was always big. We weren't, ever thinking of this as a small sort of model. But
Mm,
Mr. Conrady's after that, presentation told me, he was just silent for a while, and I was really worried about what he was going to tell me. But he said,
mm,
Sreekar, do you think you have the time, the energy, and the patience to scale this and actually work on this? Then I said,
right.
yeah, I believe so, Mr. Conradis. I think we can. Then he said, because if you do and if you're able to, he said, son, don't do a job, work on this right away. And this was something that was incredibly encouraging coming from him. Now I don't know, because he was being nice to me or whatever at that point in time. Perhaps he was just being kind, asking me to work on it, didn't want to give me too much
Hmm.
negative feedback. But that bit of
Hmm.
feedback that they taught at least gave me the confidence that theek hai, if I really put my head to this, if Suraj and I can build a team and we can really get the right people working and get a nice pricing model going, this can really
Mhm.
scale. So right from the beginning, for me, there was no doubt that this was going to be a big scalable idea. And to be
Hmm.
very honest, we've only scratched the surface so far. This is only one vertical that's taken off. We are getting a
Hmm.
lot of traction in the other career counseling stuff as well, which is going to be huge.
Right, right. I get it. Okay, so if I really look at it from the bird's eye view, the seeds were getting sowed while you guys were about to fly to US, right?
For me particularly, yeah.
Okay, and for Shrikar, so it was already there. My goodness, guys, that means the business actually is very old now. 2015, right? That's what
Yeah, the
Yeah.
the
thought is
time
definitely
period.
old. Yeah.
Thought is definitely old, right? Okay, that's quite an insight for you guys, listeners, that how this thing has really come into existence and how the validation has happened and how, I would say, the forces have come together to support them and give them the validation that yes, go ahead, do this. On this note, I would just want to say one thing, that whenever you have any sort of idea or whenever you have anything which you think so probably can work, you do need some validation. Like, you need some forces around you, you need something. Like, I have been saying this time and again in every episode now, that the validation is very important. Just starting out is gonna probably hit you really bad and make you fall on your face. Definitely you can learn something out of it, but before starting out, do have that planning stage where you bridge a lot of gaps. So do that in a proper manner, get some validation, and then only go ahead. You guys want to add something to this?
Yeah, man. So the way I sort of describe it, right? I mean, again, understand that all the advice that you will get is going to be a little biased in terms of the background that the person giving the advice is coming from and all of that. But my advice would essentially be to don't, I mean, Sreekar will definitely differ with me on this, but don't jump head on. Don't just say, hey, I have an idea, I'm quitting everything and starting on that tomorrow. That's
Hmm.
probably not going to help you because you haven't thought it through. Like you said, Sarthak, there might be a few learnings here and there, but you will
Hmm.
not even be in a position to take up those learnings because you've literally set up yourself to fail. So
Right.
failing intentionally shouldn't be the idea. If failures happen along the way, for you to be able to take up and pick up the learnings from those failures is great, but don't set yourself up to failure in the first instance. When you jump into an idea without knowing the ABCs or the validation of it, it's just setting yourself up for failure, and setting yourself up for a failure that will not even help you learn anything.
All right. Anything you want to add to the cherries? Add as the cherries, I would say, Shrikar.
Yeah, I would. In fact, I don't disagree with him. I think that's absolutely right, because you can't jump in with an idea, right? I don't believe you can. You need a very solid business model, and your unit economics need to be very sorted. That seems like a very technical term, but basically, how are you making money, right? You have to know how you're going to make a profit eventually. I mean, a lot of people think that there's a brilliant idea and then they just want to jump in head on without doing the dirty work of working out the numbers. I think that's something
Hmm.
that you absolutely cannot escape, and you need to be sure of that in order to do it. Secondarily, I think it's very important that you need to have a support system and a team in place. Your co-founder needs to be there, committed. You need somebody else working with you. All the help you can get is going to be invaluable, right? We were fortunate enough to have a support system back in Hyderabad, where we had a few people who came onto the team, willing to support us in whatever other way, to make sure that this had every chance of succeeding. So your plan needs to be in place. I agree with them, you cannot jump in head on. Your business model needs to be in place. Take opinions, yes, but also take them with a pinch of salt. again, if you are convinced that the model is set and you've done all the dirty work and the background research behind it and run your numbers, only then jump head on is what I think.
Okay, that's great. So we three are on the same page. अब तुम समझ जाओ. समझदार को इशारा काफी I would say. ठीक है. आगे
Yeah.
कुछ नहीं बोलूंगा मैं. Okay, now the next thing that I would wanna get out of your Suraj's mind, probably most like सबसे ज़्यादा importantly, I would say, is
Mhm.
that Suraj, you guys have already told us that the idea started. You guys, Suraj specifically, you were juggling three jobs, working at the governor's office, working at Itron, and setting up side by side Gradvine as well, right? And you were the one who left the job at a later stage and continued at Gradvine for the full time, right?
Right.
But what I really want to know is that you have seen the financial constraints. You have, worked your ass literally off working at the night at the graveyard. Guys, मैं सोच भी नहीं सकता, मेरी तो फट जाती. आई शपथ मेरी 74 फट जाती. ठीक है,
Yeah.
72 ही 74 फटती मेरी तो. बट मेरी फट जाती रात को 12 से 3 ग्रेवयार्ड में काम करने में. ठीक है, and whatnot to make your ends meet. So, and also you come from a this the employee based family background, right?
Yeah.
So when you actually made the decision, okay, I'm going to Hyderabad to work full time for Gradvine, and probably you might have fulfilled the loan amount and everything, but did you really feel about the security factor? Even though Gradvine was at a good stage, did you feel okay, now that I'm leaving these two jobs and I'll be getting into this, I am going to leave a security factor and I'll be on my own, that I have to make this a success, otherwise it's again square one. So what was
Absolutely,
the
man.
mindset? What was your mindset when you really decided to write that resignation letter for the better of Gradvine, and how did you really convince yourself of getting to this
Yeah.
risk?
Look, more than convincing myself, you have to understand as a family how risk averse we are, right? We
Yes.
are just teachers, regular teachers who've never essentially gone out of their way, taken a bigger sort of a risk. And so
Mm.
convincing my mom that I'm going to be coming back to India was
Uh,
probably something that took me a long time, even before I could, just jump ship and stuff. But even
okay.
after that, one of the things that is very very glamorized, I think, in today's startup world is the fact that people just risk everything without any security nets and stuff like that. I'm probably going to take a diss at that, with a little bit of how I've built my own security net.
Okay.
So I was working for a couple of companies back in the US. When I
Mhm.
decided to move back to India, I did not quit them completely. I am going to tell you that I did have a security net in place. So I worked hard enough at these companies. They knew
Uh,
the value that I was bringing to them. And so
uh,
they were okay with me working for a while from
mhm.
India in a consulting sort of a position. So I did
Okay.
as much as I could to build that security net for myself.
Mhm.
Even to this date, and this is something that I read a lot of books. So that's one of the
Mhm.
things that I essentially do right now, because I think a lot of learning comes from that. And
Mhm.
Malcolm Gladwell, in one of his books, talks about how security nets for entrepreneurs are very very significant and important.
Mhm.
So I still to this date have a security net in place, where I have a few financial investments. I have a
Mhm.
few, because of the time that I spent in the US, I was able to save, particularly. I also have a few sort of ongoing assignments that I take up from time to time to just make sure that I'm financially doing okay to meet my goals, etc.
Mhm.
So the ability to have a security net is, I think, very, very important for people that are very risk averse. I
Mhm.
am understanding thoroughly what my risk appetite is, and I'm building
Mhm.
security nets as and when I'm going through. This
Mhm.
does not take away from the fact that I am dedicatedly giving my 100% to Gradvine. It's just that there are a lot of other things that I can do with my time in
Mhm.
order to make sure that financially I'm secure enough.
Okay, so guys,
So
that comes with learning. Shrikar, I would want to know your opinion and your journey here. How have you built up your nets, and what have you done for yourself on this on the similar ground?
I do invest in sources of passive income all the time, Sarthak, because we need to diversify a little bit. Of
Hmm.
course, for me at least, and for Suraj too, now fortunately, Gradvine pays us a significant enough salary so that we are comfortable. But for
Hmm.
me, it's all about also diversifying in various different ways. So I don't
Hmm.
take up any other full time or part time roles anywhere. But essentially, what I do is I invest in different opportunities that present themselves to me from the money that I've saved up, of course, here, and
Hmm.
essentially sources of passive income. Like we're investing at this point, like in a pay and play swimming pool, for instance, right? It's just
Hmm.
you investing money over a period of time, and then once people start using it, there's going to be income. We're looking at investing in other sporting facilities as well, which are
Hmm.
small investments over a period of time. But I think it's very important that you keep your eyes open to such opportunities where passive income comes in, to supplement your core, income that's, getting the job done, which is Gradvine.
Okay, okay, okay. So, guys, on this part, I would definitely want to add up and say that safety nets are important. I mean, if not, if I shouldn't really call it a safety net, I would say at least a fallback is important. Okay, a fallback good enough to tell you that, whatever the worst might come, you'll be able to sustain. Getting down's really hard that you're not able to pick yourself back up. I would call that shitty, honestly,
Yeah.
because then that's useless. You won't be able to set up another business. You won't be able to do anything. And see, honestly, as I was so guys, I was just yesterday also I was talking to another entrepreneur in the investment sector, and it's also about Indian economy, where we have to fight for the meals, for the two square meals, that we are able to get those meals. Something unlike in US, guys, if you would agree with me on this, right, where a lot of basic stuff and basic, I would say, expenses are taken care of even by the government. So you really have to take care that at the end of the day that you are getting food to eat, and you have at least a roof over your head. So get yourself secured enough, okay, and side hustle a lot, and then probably work around it, or at least know that there is something behind you which is going to take care of you, of the family, of or other variables that might be existing in your life. So the situation matters a lot. Just keep that in mind.
100%, man.
Okay, that's great. Shrikar, you want to add something to it?
No, I think this time I'll be the one to say you summed it up very well.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Okay, so Suraj, I mean, Shrikar already told me, what all Shrikar picked up while working at Scient in Hyderabad, management, the employee management, and how to deal with other people, the corporate structuring, the internal structuring, all that stuff. If I talk about you, what
Mhm.
all did you pick up while working
Oh.
in the governor's office and ITRON, and what was, because these were the two only places you worked at, right?
Yeah, man. So, my training or my core skill set is in
Mm-hmm.
data analytics, data science, machine learning, and deep learning.
Mm-hmm.
So, coming from a again, I revert always to chemical engineering, but it's chemical engineering. So, coming from a chemical engineering background, man,
Right,
you
right,
do not expect someone to know all of these things, which has
right.
been one of my. So there are two things that I want to learn in life. One is a core skill set, and
Mm,
one is all of the softer sort of skills that I need to get to whatever I want to achieve.
right,
My
right.
core skill set lies in my ability to take a look at numbers, to build things, skill set to sort of build data driven decision making pipelines, etc. And this was something that I've re-emphasized and reinforced both during my graduate school as well as during all of the work that I've done for different people, different companies all over the years. So today I drive decisions at Gradvine in a very, very data driven perspective. I drive it a certain way. We look at data, we look at past trends in the number of students that are coming in, we look at our past admits, we look at the
Mm,
profiles of the students that have had these admits, and then we
mm,
are able to inform the next batch of students very, very well. And that
mm,
forms the basis of the way we shortlist universities, of the way we sort of give out advice, of the way we've built our platform, etc. So the core
right.
skill that I've built over the years, over the last, I want to say 6 7 years, is the
Hmm.
skill of being able to essentially take data and
Hmm.
make decisions based on data. That is something that I have taken on as my role here. That is something that has formed the foundation, the fundamental of everything that we do here at Gradvine. We take data-driven decisions, and that
Hmm.
is something that I drive from the top up, top down, in terms of empowering every single employee to look at numbers,
Hmm.
to just take a look at Excel sheets, to be able to figure out what's going on, take decisions based on that. So that has been my core skill and journey, and that is something that I've learned over the years, which I'm implementing at Gradvine at this point.
Okay, I get it. Okay, so we also know that, how these two brilliant minds are bringing their learnings to Gradvine now. Okay, so guys, now before we, get down to some serious shit, okay, more serious shit, I would say. We've been talking about serious shit for the past 2 hours. ठीक है? I don't know कितनी serious हो सकती है. ठीक है? So now, but tell me, so Suraj or probably Shrika, I don't remember exactly who, but one of you guys quoted that there were many funny consultant stories that has happened with you.
We come
Okay,
here again. Okay.
so tell me about those stories now.
Sure, Sreekar, go
So one,
ahead.
I want one
So
each. Come on.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I won't talk to you about my experience because they were mostly wrong advice and not really anything typically funny. But
Hmm.
so many consultants here that give so much wrong advice. Like the first thing that they tell you is that the application process is very complicated and you
Hmm.
cannot fill the application on your own. ये तो बहुत लोग बोलते हैं. Like your name, your father's name, your passport number, and your phone number is something very difficult to fill apparently. That somebody else has to fill it for you. And my argument is that is like, okay, if you are going to fill your father's name and your phone number wrong, what guarantee is there that somebody else is going to do it right, right? Now, apart from this, we had a couple of students being told that the universe, it's very important that you send the packets and the documents to the universities
Hmm.
very properly, very safely, and pick the right courier services and all of that. Now the fun
Hmm.
part was that is one fine morning, in the middle of February when I was at Dartmouth, I see a
Hmm.
pile of documents that are lying outside the associate dean's office, and this
Okay.
gentleman comes out and he says, I don't know why Indian kids send all these physical documents to us, Sreekar. Like everything can be sent online. Why do they send us these packets? तो फिर मुझे पता चला कि first of all, this is a scare tactic by these consultants. You don't need to send physical copies of a recommendation letter, guys. Like if there's anybody applying, like online हो जाता है, पढ़ सकते हैं वो PDF viewer में. So you don't have to send them like a physical copy in this day and age. You didn't have to send it 10 years ago either. Uh, so I was looking at that situation, and then these consultants say, no, your
Uh,
application will be disqualified if you don't send packets in the courier. और उसको बोलते हैं packet. मतलब a packet of your recommendation letter, तुम्हारा transcript, maybe they're sending their resume also and essays also
hmm.
printed on a paper भेज रहे हैं ये लोग. तो फिर
Hmm.
मुझे पता चला कि इन लोगों को courier company के साथ commission मिलता है for every courier. So student को डराते भी हैं ये लोग और ये भी मतलब एडमिशंस कमिटी को भी इरिटेट करते हैं नाम लिखा होता है स्टूडेंट का कि सो एंड सो हैज सेंट यू दिस डॉक्यूमेंट एंड ही इज एन इडियट लाइक वो भी लिख देते हैं उसके ऊपर तो हो जाता है सो एजुकेटिंग किड्स दैट लिसन डोंट बी डम ना लाइक तुम जाके पढ़ रहे हो use a little bit of common sense. Why do you have to send piles of packets with your resume when you submitted everything online and paid a fee online? So
Right.
that's one bit of nonsense that these guys spew. And of course the academically and wrong advice is तो मतलब अलग ही level का है वो.
Acha. Example? Who can't take a Suraj, you wanna add something?
Sure. So my beef with consultants, right?
Uh,
None of these guys have literally ever taken the GRE or the GMAT or any of the standardized exam prep.
uh,
None of these guys have actually gone to the US to do a master's degree or to, just get any sort of a degree, even if it is, one of these certificate degrees that again is a different story. But they have the gall to come back and advise someone who's trying to get there
Hmm.
by telling them, hey, I know what the scene is out there. Don't apply to these programs. Don't apply to the top 10. You will not get in. Apply to this particular school, which they have a tie up with. You will
Huh.
get in, you will get a job afterwards, right?
Right.
The idea that academic counseling in our sector right now
Hmm.
is something, so the business model itself incentivizes these consultants to not think of the student and dole out good advice from a student's perspective. Their
Hmm.
financial model is set up in a way where they are making profits and money, not even profits, they are making money when a
Huh.
student goes to a university that they have a tie up with.
Oh.
They've, in my head at least, they've got it completely wrong. Like, if you are not actually sitting down with the student and telling him what is best for him, if you're
Hmm.
not acting in good faith, if you're
Hmm.
not telling the student, hey, sure, these are universities that you can apply to, by the way, I have tie-ups with these places that you can also explore, sure, that's fine. If you are
Hmm.
making sure that the student only applies to places that you have tied up with, essentially
Hmm.
telling them stories of how you could get a job or whatever,
Right.
but not revealing at the same time that you make your money, you make your survival, your livelihood based on
Hmm.
the money that the university is giving you, it makes
Right.
absolutely no sense. And that's how the business model of pretty much every single old school traditional counselor consultant is set up at this point in time. They are making money
Hmm.
by pushing students to a university that they are tied up with because the university pays them the money for getting students in. Harvard, Stanford, MIT, Carnegie Mellon, Dartmouth, these are not places that are going to tie up with you in any case. They get enough applications just on the basis of their brand name. They do not need consultants or counselors outside to bring them the brand and the name and the applications. That's
Hmm.
not something that you can do. But yeah, I mean,
Right.
if you go out there and look at the number of counselors, especially in a city of Hyderabad, right? And we send the most number of students abroad. In the city of Hyderabad, there's one counselor consultant at every gully. In every single
God.
nook and cranny of the city, you will find consultants, counselors, etc. Every
Huh.
single one of them works in the same way. They have tie-ups, they take money from the university. They are not acting from the betterment of a student perspective. They do not want that at all. They don't care about that at all. They care about the fact that they are making money, which absolutely should be the way, but not at the expense of giving bad advice. And that's
Right.
the business model we are looking to upend. And we've been successful so far because of the fact that we are so far away from that business model. We are
Right.
getting you advice from the horse's mouth directly from people who are in the same course, in the same university that you're trying to get to. That has been the biggest impact we've been able to create so far.
Okay. Like that is the impact I would
And
say.
also to
Right.
come up with a bit more
Yeah.
funny sort of anecdotes from this, and sometimes this
Hmm.
honest advice also backfires on us, from
Okay.
some of the students themselves.
Okay.
And like a lot of recent, a couple of years ago, we had a kid who was doing a chemical engineering undergrad and
Hmm.
decides I want to apply for masters in computer science. And
Okay.
you can get in. There are universities that will take you, but what you do after
Huh.
that, nobody knows. But
Right.
we told him that, bhai, like kaise lenge tumhe अच्छे universities? There
Hmm.
are courses that allow you to take electives and shift into that. We explained it very scientifically, explaining the course structure. That's the
Hmm.
depth of advice we give them.
Hmm.
नहीं इतना बड़ा लंबा रिव्यू लिख लेते हैं हमारे बारे में. Very few bad reviews we get, but these are majority of them, right? कि oh, they don't let you apply to courses that you're passionate about. But भाई, truth of the matter is passion तो decide हो जाता है. Engineering के बाद अलग passion मुश्किल है. Or at least you have to choose something which is within the realm of things. If you want to do a master's degree, chemical से computer science, data science कैसे कर सकते हो, right? We
Hmm.
need to have certain prerequisites, and we are very honest. We will not give convenient advice which makes life easy for us. We know if we suggest a computer science university, उस बंदे के लिए उसे मिल जाएगा admit, but बाद
Hmm.
में वो कितना suffer होएगा, we know that as well, right? So
Hmm.
it backfires on us too, but largely positive impact through the way we've dealt with it.
Hmm. Okay, okay, I get it. I completely get it. ठीक है यार. So I mean, guys, if you really understand the model here and the way these guys are working, and how this funny anecdote actually pulls out even more harsher truth of the Indian system, एक तो मेरे को बहुत गालियाँ पड़ेंगी. मैं बहुत कल्चर की मावन करते हुए बैठ जाता हूँ बहुत. आशापत में बहुत करने बैठ जाता हूँ. So I mean, but that's the reality यार. I mean, मैं नहीं बोल रहा हूँ, बिजनेस में खुद लोग आगे बोलते हैं कि ऐसा होता है. दैट्स द पॉइंट. हमारे को पैसा चाहिए लेकिन किसी और की वैल्यूज खराब करके पैसा नहीं चाहिए. बहुत लोग हैं जो ऐसा ही कर रहे हैं. सो जस्ट
Absolutely.
एटलीस्ट दैट मैटर ऑफ फैक्ट रिस्पेक्ट द पीपल हु आर ट्राइंग टू गिव यू बेटर स्टफ. At least they're trying to educate you. They're trying to make you realize that some things that you might be doing are wrong. Some things that you might be exposed to, probably unintentionally, are wrong. Just come towards the right stuff, I would say. Okay, okay, I get it. यार एक बात बताओ श्रीकर, आपको कोका कोला से पीपीओ नहीं मिला था?
I did not यार, मतलब वो core logistics और operations का काम था. That was an internship.
हाँ,
I could
I
have pursued it further, but again, was it work that I really would enjoy on a day-to-day basis? Perhaps not.
right, right. Okay, ठीक है. So now we have had the very beautiful marriage that Sreekar and Suraj have played so far. ठीक है. Let's talk about the dirty part of the marriage. So Sreekar and Suraj, who's gonna talk about it? कितनी लड़ाइयाँ होती हैं, कितने झगड़े होते हैं? How do you guys get through it?
Yeah, man. I mean, there are there are no fights.
Okay.
The only fights happen on the badminton court.
अरे
So
भगवान.
Sreekar is like a so in badminton lingo, he looks one way and drops the shuttle the other, and that sort of irritates me. So most of the fights only end up happening on the badminton court and just in jest. In terms of sitting down together and making decisions for the company, I think very well thought out processes that we've put in place where we go through the entire thing. We figure out from a finance perspective what's happening, from a company long term branding perspective what's happening, from a company's daily deliverable perspective what is happening, and then we are able to sit down and look at the better or the good of the company overall and take a decision. I've known Sreekar for what now? This is 2021. I've known him since 2010. Yeah, almost 2010. I don't think we've ever had any fights as such in the last 10 years or so.
Shrikar, is that right?
That is true because again, right, we known each other for so long that, like I said, we understand our strengths and weaknesses, Sarthak. Like for instance,
Nice,
if there is
nice.
a new tech intervention or a tech implementation that needs to be put in place, and
Hmm.
we have a discussion about what the budget is going to be. I
Hmm.
don't argue too much on that, or try and stamp my authority or something of that sort. Because that level of trust is there, because I know he knows this stuff very well and he understands that it's very critical for the business to scale. End
Right.
objective दोनों का same है. We have to be profitable, we have to be lean, we have to create value, right? When these pillars are set, there's a level of trust between the decision making. He doesn't intervene in maybe the large long term strategy decisions, the marketing decisions, the branding decisions, or even potentially hiring for my team. We do our hiring individually. I say I need a person to work under me for marketing. He says he needs an operations person or a tech guy. We don't
Hmm.
debate or dispute that at all because we trust each other's judgment calls in that regard. So very well defined roles, understanding each other's strengths and weaknesses, and the trust factor. तो ऐसे business में major लड़ाइयाँ नहीं होती है. Disagreements तो होती हैं. Disagreements are very important. If you're both
Hmm.
agreeing on the same things and going along, you'll jump into the same lake essentially. So disagreements
Hmm.
are very essential because they give a different perspective and make sure that the best decision comes out, but it never escalates to a fight. We defer to each other's judgments based on area of expertise.
Okay. And how, well, what are these disagreements on? Give me more insight on that. How do you really deal with those disagreements? Probably if you guys have any anecdotes.
Basically, So yeah, I think one just thought process disagreement, again, can't go into specifics, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm basically of the idea that it's better to spend maybe a lakh, just for the sake, a random number, on a
Mm-hmm.
well thought out good resource or something that has a high chance of success. And if it's
Mm-hmm.
okay if it fails, but it's okay spending a lakh on that, then putting 20,000 or 10,000 on a resource that's, is going to fail 90%. That's my
Right.
thought process, right?
Mm-hmm.
um, Sometimes Suraj will not agree to that, because the quantum is more important there. He's like, okay, if the 20,000 resource fails, it's
Mm-hmm.
fine, we don't lose too much, but I don't even want to take that 20-30% risk of that 1 lakh resource failing. That's where a lot of the sort of disagreements come in. But again, I think Suraj will agree with me on this also. He defers to me on that decision. We rather bet bigger on more assured means of success, rather than taking tiny risks here and there. I think we've evolved as a company beyond that.
Yeah, we've evolved as a company. I've also evolved as an individual. If that was the same decision I was sitting down to take when I was 21 or 22, I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't take it that way. I would always stamp my authority there and say, hey, irrespective, I am not spending or whatever big amount of money. I'm not spending that. That is something that we've earned very through a lot of hardship, and that is not something that I would like to spend. But over the years, I've sort of understood that in order to get to the goals, first of all, goal setting has been something that I learned from him. The ability to think big, the ability to look at something that is beyond your day to day sustenance and survival is something that I've learned from him. And so, in order to get to those goals, what are steps that we take intermediate? What are things that we do in between? Those are also things that I have evolved as a person in terms of my thinking itself. Like I said, if you were to ask me the same sort of thought process about 5 6 years ago, my thought process would be there's absolutely no way we are spending that amount of money to do anything, let alone branding, strategy, hiring, nothing. There
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't be that high outflows ever,
Mm-hmm.
right? But that has changed over the years for me because of the time that I've spent both on the business with him, with other people, just training myself, getting to a mentality where it's okay to, financially invest rather than, just pour money out. The critical word being invest in resources, in human beings, in technology, in new opening up new business lines, etc. So I have gotten from a very risk averse person to somewhere medium on the risk spectrum, where I understand what a good investment means.
Right. Okay. So on this note, I would like to re-quote first thing. Okay. So as you know, guys, Sreekar right now mentioned that their values are same, the core is same, that they want the company to grow together, right? And otherwise, the job roles are defined. No one disputes each other's decisions in their specific spectrum. That if you need this, okay. If I need this, okay. So the point being, and and recording that I'm doing is, so Shrikar and Suraj, we have had another great entrepreneurs, I would say, from the company here and now, Aditya and Nikhil on the show, and so they are into team building activities and teaching people about a lot of consulting and coaching in terms of team building. So they said one thing, that the values, I mean, the personalities could be different, but the core value has to be the same. And
Mhm.
Speaker just said the same thing in different words, and that is exactly what these guys are also doing, is that they've got different personalities altogether, but the core value, which is to grow Gradvine, to add value to people's life, to add value to the students life who are aspiring to go out abroad, that is same for both of them. And on they both are complementing each other on their highs and lows. So that's something you guys really need to pick up out here. Okay. And firstly, I would also like to say kudos to Suraj, who has very lovely, in a very lovely way, put out that what all he has picked up from Shrikar, like thinking big, and the vision of goal setting from Shrikar. And I would like to point this out also that this is very important learning as well, guys. Okay, and this has to come up. I mean, many entrepreneurs learn it on their way that you have to think big. You would actually listen to many public speakers also saying again and again that you have to think big, and have a vision. But when you're working with someone and you pick that up, that's really important. Majorly,
Yeah.
why I'm pointing this out is also because the background that Suraj comes from is matters a lot. When you are in an employee-driven background where everyone is working, right? So that is where your thinking also limits. I mean, it's not that you are responsible for it, but it's the situations around you, your surroundings tame you that way that your thinking gets limited towards getting a job, a two square meal, and something which gives you security. But the point you start thinking ahead of it, that is where your growth happens. So kudos to you, Suraj, I'm so sorry, Suraj. I know how you've picked it up and how you've started implementing, and for actually admitting also that at the age of 2021 you probably might have not have said yes to those decisions, and now that you guys are on the very same page. Shrikar, if I ask you what have you picked up from Suraj, what would that be? Badminton, right?
I have picked up because I'll tell you what, right? Like in terms of kind of person I am, in terms of perspective, it's very odd also for new age entrepreneurs. I'm very resistant to technology and automation, right? I'm very old school with respect to that. So I don't really believe in massive tech interventions that much. And it's a bad thing. That's something which was my attitude. I think 3 or 4 years ago, maybe. But being with Suraj, understanding, because he comes from a data science background, understands technology inside out. Tech interventions, spending a lot of money, not sure whether they'll work or no. I'm always of the belief that people drive companies, and that holds true so to a certain extent. But Suraj has taught me that listen, technology when used well, and if you do the right interventions at the right time, it's going to be absolutely fantastic for the company, and that's something that I've realized over time. And secondarily, I think the reason why our website or our initial platform was done cheap, and every subsequent iteration to that site also has been very has been very lean. It hasn't taken a huge burden on the company, but it's done the job. We never compromised on functionality. That was because he has the patience to sit down on the nitty gritties, eke out and save at every corner, and also understand the power of technology. I think these two things are something that I've really learned from him, and that have really benefited to the company as well.
Okay, okay. This is like मुझे ऐसा लग रहा है मैंने एक presentation में question पूछा श्रीकर से, श्रीकर is in the middle of presentation, and then श्रीकर बोल रहा है I picked up this point 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. श्रीकर कौन सी presentation देनी है आज, किसको present करना है?
Unfortunately, we are not seasoned veterans of giving presentations. I mean, people that probably that you brought on previously would have done multiple investor pitch decks and stuff like that. So they're probably much more well versed with the entire thing. We've actually never, literally never pitched in front of an investor. So that is a completely that's an area where we have absolutely no idea about.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Okay, okay, okay. That's great, yeah. So guys, you have mentioned that you have had a fair share of failures. Okay. Tell me, like one of those failures that you both remember, okay, and something which was huge and large in your opinions, and probably if I may call it a hurdle as well, which failed, which you think was the biggest failure and you learned a lot from it. What was it?
Sure, I have one. So our aim, right, our goal right now, and it's always an ever sort of evolving goal that we set up for ourselves. One of the verticals that we want to make it big in
Mm-hmm.
is the school career counseling sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The reason for that is because by the time people get out of their undergrad degrees, when they are
Mm-hmm.
already in the age of 19, 20, 21,
Mm-hmm.
they've already sort of made certain career choices,
Right.
which they can't walk back. They can only go forward from. And the extent to which they can go forward from there is very limited given the decision that you've taken. For example, as an engineer, there's only so many things that you can do after engineering that you can probably sort of get into as compared to something that you think through what to take up for undergraduate studies. So
Right.
our core focus mission, and the goal right now is to sort of break very, very well within the school career counseling sort of markets. While
Mm,
we are getting a lot of traction right now, we
mm,
failed to recognize the fact that schools themselves are academic institutions, and some of these schools are very, very reluctant and resistant to change. I
mm,
was coming in all, starry eyed, both really good graduates from really good universities abroad. We thought that the foray into schools and career counseling is going to be so smooth that we'll
right.
not even be able to, scale up and deal with the demands and all of that. When
Mm,
we actually hit the ground, when we
mm,
actually took meetings with principals, directors, they were very, very gung ho about the concept, about the ideas, and all of that.
mm,
But when it actually came to giving us contracts and sitting down and sitting down with the execution and stuff like that, every
mm,
single school essentially that we've approached has been very, very hesitant to actually take the step and go through with it. And that's been a big failure for us to be able to, coming in with a wrong perception of the entire school market and just assuming that things will just fall into place for us
mm.
was a big failure for me personally and for the company as well in the last couple of years. But we've learned our lessons from there, and we are driving the game on ground right now and seeing a lot of traction because of our learnings from these sort of past failures. So that's my biggest failure within the company. Of course, bunch of personal failures as well.
Okay. Shrikar, what about you?
I failures. I think he took the biggest failure that I wanted to talk about. That has been little disappointing considering the areas that you want to get into. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, hurdles, maybe hurdles, and certain times when we really felt deflated were there. Like for instance, there was a point where I don't know who it was. It was a competitor who, or whether it was some jilted person who just launched a smear campaign against us. Bunch of one-star reviews on Google. That just brought us down. And in our sort of sector,
Mm-hmm.
word of mouth and the perception is very, very important because it's a one time
Right.
service. A student who does one service with us might not likely come back again, right? So you refer and
Right.
you get referred by somebody. They look at your digital presence and your brand, how credible it looks, and then they go ahead, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the issue. So some guy just one day decided to give in 50 bad one-star Google reviews. Everything came down. We lost a few sales, and at that point we were extremely dejected. Ki, okay, after so much hard work, and this happened only last year, is this
Mm-hmm.
what it takes to bring a company down? And
Mm-hmm.
we were really worried that it really brought the company down. But we managed it, we tackled it. We repaired the brand reputation, made customers know that this was a campaign that was carried out by somebody else. And after that, we kept delivering quality service, which brought our ratings up again, right? So we realized that okay, ऐसे तो होता रहता है, when you are providing a service to people, but it's important that you don't get bogged down by it so much, and that there will always be a way up. It's not that easy to pull down a business that's doing genuinely good work, is what we realized.
Okay. That's great यार. So you मतलब एक फेलियर था जो कि सूरज ने उठा लिया, दूसरा शेखर ने बोल दिया आके. Okay, I see it. So guys, that's something I would want to tell you listeners out there that if you're in a service industry, this is very much evident. I mean, service industry, mein, specifically India, mein, more than the quality of work, this word of mouth spreads. I mean, you might be sitting there with all your work open in front of a potential client and tell them that this is what I can do. But then on the contract reference आएगा, I'm telling you business चला जाएगा. I mean, honestly, that's the harsh reality. Something on which every service industry thrives on in India, but that's a harsh reality. It really happens. So either you make benefit out of it, or you try to change it, or you run with it. But it is something or to which I personally think there's no solution to it because it's just engraved and it's so deep in the Indian emotions and the Indian system that Really hard to pull out. What do you guys think about it?
With the service industry, I think it's just inherent how the thing is. It's not something that you can, sort of foresee or foretell.
Hmm.
Within the service industry, the idea is to just deliver exceptional customer service every single time with every single customer. I think our mantra is very, very simple. We sort of sit down with every single student that we advise, that we mentor, and make sure that every single student is getting the best of the service that we have to offer. We believe in the idea of retail advice or retail mentorship. We don't really think there is one size that fits all. I don't think we will get to that stage anytime in the future, anytime in the near future at least, where there's one sort of thing that will fit every single student's career counseling needs. And therefore, for us in the service industry, there's literally only one mantra: make sure that every student is dealt with in terms of giving the best possible service for their particular background profile, needs, goals, etc. So that has been something that we've been able to drive both at the top level as well as with the employees, where we make sure that everyone understands that every single student is a unique personality, and we've got to understand their personality, their needs, their goals,
Hmm.
and their ambitions, and make sure to customize everything in terms of the process for them.
Okay, and serious, Shrikar, what were you gonna say about it?
It's sad but true. There is no escaping that customer perception. And that's actually worked out well for us because, like I said, there can be one odd element who wants to pull you down, and there will always be those guys. But when you keep delivering great service, process after process, year after year, when you are, as a company genuinely concerned about what you're delivering to your customers, फिर तो मिल जाता है. And one fact about Gradvine that will particularly sum this up, Sarthak, is that 88% of our new customers come to us through referrals from past customers. So that's how we've grown essentially. Nothing, no magic, nothing of that sort. The way we've scaled is word of mouth.
Yeah. So I mean, देख लो. This is something for entrepreneurs. I would definitely say कि either use this to your benefit or you just let this pull you down. It's up to you. ठीक है? Okay. So now as we move on, Shrikar and Suraj, if I ask you what is your greatest fear, what would that be?
I probably have to think about this a little bit.
हाँ मतलब मैं समझ गया सूरज आप
Srikar, do you have something?
you know you're not fearful of falling
My
down.
No, falling down is a big thing. I mean, if you fall, you fall. But my greatest fear almost is a backward step, right?
Hmm.
That's not something that I like at all. I don't like to go backward because we've only been going forward. And backward could mean getting firing an employee because you can't afford him, or moving to a smaller office due to certain reasons. During COVID, also we've grown, and in fact we've expanded and taken new office space. So for me, always, the way we planned also is financially very, very strong. So despite all that, we don't want to take a backward step. Everything at Gradvine is solid and dense. It's not hollow. By that, what I mean is, be it our cash flows, be it our profitability, be it our runway in terms of funds, it's all so very well planned out and solidly planned out that we should only be going forward. Now, if something happens that is going to still make us take a backward step despite all the planning, that is one of the greatest fears. Pura collapsing, pura girne ka, I don't think we're thinking that far. That's a step too far. I don't even as an entrepreneur want to take a backward step. To be very honest, we have to only keep growing and go forward.
Okay, okay. एक और चीज जो सूरज मुझे आपसे पूछनी है.
Mhm.
And Shrikar, I would like to have your opinion on this, ठीक है? Because you guys are co-founders, and as I mentioned, having both the co-founders together is a pleasure for me. So one thing which I really want to understand is a lot of times, it's just firstly see, being co-founders is definitely like a marriage, okay? So you guys are married to each other as long as the business is going on, okay? Not literally, no puns intended, guys. Thank you so much. Okay, moving on with the question. So, uh, when I say this, what also comes to head is like I have heard elders saying that, get to the people who are at your level, or find people whom you match your vibes with. So definitely, Shrikar and Suraj, your vibes have matched at a lots and lots of levels. Okay, understanding the work culture and everything. But did it ever cross your minds that, probably, the financial backgrounds that you guys come from, and because of that, the kind of input that you put into a company, that it could be a reason for any sort of fallout or any sort of discrepancy that can probably arise between you two? Had this been a concern for you guys?
So more than the financial backgrounds matching or whatever, the first and the most important thing for me was just a value match or a goal match.
Okay.
If my idea, so three things: value match, goal match, and am I getting to learn?
Hmm.
Because of my time at CMU, I sort of figured out that I thrive in environments where I'm learning from the people around me, where people
Hmm.
around me are supportive of certain well thought out decisions that I take, not the ones that I, just blurt out of the top of my head. And that's something that Sreekar manages to shoot down pretty much every single time. But those were three critical things that I had in mind for me in terms of a working environment. And it shows itself, man. I mean, we've known each other for 10 years now, but in the 10 years we've not known each other just as friends, but we've known each other as colleagues working for different conferences. We've been teammates over on the same teams. We've gone through experiences that are similar in terms of graduate study, in terms of getting jobs, etc. So it's not just the vibe from a friend sort of a perspective. Is this someone I would love to hang out with? It's more of a vibe in terms of, is this someone that I would love to work with? Have I worked with him in the past? Have I sort of had professional experiences with him? And does that sit well with the value sort of that I want from either a company, from us, from someone who I'm sort of working with on a day-to-day sort of a basis? Or is this something that doesn't really make any sense? So that was how my decision making process was, and it was pretty simple for me to make that decision because of the instances in the past that we'd worked together.
Okay, okay. Shrikar, what about you?
Yeah, so like he said, right, it wasn't an uncertain sort of arrangement that we were getting into, because we both knew what our, again, advantages and shortcomings were in a professional setting.
Hmm.
So yeah, there wasn't any unknown or any sort of risk we were taking in terms of that respect. The only thing I think we haven't realized so far, because again, the way we worked, most of our organizations have been successful. No, real bad experiences thus far. We don't know how both of us react to major failure. मतलब ups and downs होती रहती हैं. That's absolutely fine. We know how we react to that, and sometimes I'm more measured, sometimes he's more measured. So we figure it out. But that's the only thing. Like say Gradvine tanked at some point. How would we have reacted to it? I don't know. My guess at this point in time, knowing Suraj, is that we'd have just probably started something else if we saw value in it or potential in it. So we'll
Hmm.
constantly keep trying.
Hmm. Okay, okay. ठीक है. So guys, see, this thing again brings out another beautiful aspect of a partnership. When you're looking forward to get into partnership, is that you know you have to understand the person more than anything else, from the even irrespective of the background they're coming from. Understand the person, and how is this marriage going to last for you? How is this marriage going to turn out? I mean, I would say for Suraj and Shrikar, it was 4 years of doing college together that these friends started this thing out, right? That too after long, long time. So
Hmm.
because the proper roots and establishment of the company happened really later on, but this thing happened really later on. So you need to understand that whosoever you decide to partner with, you need to have a lots and lots of background check, a lot of compatibility tests, a lot of, I would say, ups and down tests, how the person reacts, is it in your favor, not favor, are the goals same or not, like all those things really need to be choked out and worked around before things really happen. Okay, so guys, moving on. Like I guess that we're probably approaching towards the end because my questions are running out. Like all I could think of after listening to you guys, but still there is gonna be stuff, right? So guys, now tell me, what are your money management plans? I mean, so Suraj, you told me that there are some investments that you have made for your safety net. Shrikar, you have told me that you have some got something. But how are your money management plans for the company, if I ask about it? Since you guys are profitable, how are you planning to expand or invest, or how do you think about it?
Go ahead.
So today we are in a. Go ahead, Suraj. Sorry.
No, I don't have anything. He manages the finances, so yeah,
Okay.
he's probably the better person to talk about it.
Okay. All right. So we are in a situation which is, very odd, I would say. I don't know how many startups are in this position that we have enough in the bank. We don't know where to spend it, essentially, right? That's
Oh, wow.
how we've planned the finances because we are incredibly profitable. We are looking at gross profit percentages at about 40% at this point,
Oh,
which,
wow.
from my understanding of company at this stage is fairly high. That's just how the pricing model and, like I said, unit economics. I keep harping on it. That's just how we
Mhm.
set it up, and that's something that we
Mhm.
were very keen on. We are not,
Mhm.
kind of guys who plan the finances by thinking about the cost of customer acquisition, right? Where ye free
Mhm.
mein de do, wo free mein de do, and then you're growing your customer base. But at the end of the day, money was, leaking. I think I saw one sort of answer by, I think it was Mr. Rahul Bajaj, I'm not sure, where he said that this cost of customer acquisition where you're giving freebies is like distributing 100 rupees notes on the road, to people and
Mhm.
telling the world that, okay, he's my customer, he's my customer, he's my customer. Obviously he'll be a customer when you're doling out freebies. There needs to
Right.
be a plan as to how you're going to monetize that and become profitable at the end of the day, right? For us, that
Mhm.
was always clear. Where we always invest our money is improving our technology, automating processes. That's something that's a constant endeavor and which is inescapable, very important. We
Mhm.
spend on very good resources. The team makes the company. We have a team that is extremely motivated, driven, and that is paid. And I mean, I hope they agree to it. But honestly, if you check the market scenario, paid well above, what the market pays, right? As a
Okay.
company, in terms of the offers that we made, they're very well compensated. Our employees are never, bought in for a bargain, right? So that's where we will not compromise. Our employees should grow. They should get their promotions. They should grow both in terms of what they're earning and their, lifestyles as well. That's where we spend, and that's the culture we've developed. And the third thing,
Mhm.
of course, we do not splurge on mindless marketing. And by mindless marketing, I say that, right now, if you Google anything related to education, one particular company will come up, right? Pretty
Mhm.
much, right? So they have the funds to do so, but we will never keep spending just for the sake of visibility. We have
Mhm.
a very sorted funnel planned out, and we will only spend on areas where there are results expected to a large extent. That's something that we've realized. And
Mhm.
this is not a learning that's come to us, right as an epiphany, because we've spent and sunk money in the past. We know कि कहाँ पे workout
Mhm.
होता है, कहाँ पे नहीं होता है. And
Mhm.
we also focus a lot more on putting out great content. So I'd much rather spend on a person who's putting out great content for us rather than somebody who's great at, say, a Google AdWords who's going to keep flashing your ads randomly, right? So
Mhm.
that's the philosophy in terms of marketing. But yeah, that's how where we are financially. That's how we planned it. I think because we've been profitable right from day one, that's left us a lot in the bank for us to experiment and have a lot of security, both for us as a company and for our employees as well. Another thing is during lockdown, except for 2 months, and that too, that was at a very minor rate of, I believe, a 20% salary cut. None of our employees lost their salaries. None of them were laid off. In fact, we hired more during the pandemic, and we had to expand our office space. That's only because our financial planning has been solid, and that's something that I take care of a lot by sitting down with my auditors, every 15 to 20 days, uh, working on projections with my finance guy, understanding where the company is going in three scenarios: best case, worst case, if we stay where we are, and then
Mhm.
plan the next set of expansion. It's a lot of hard work. Some people think it's obsessive. Some people think it's maybe a little too conservative and I should take more risks. But that's what has
Mhm.
paid off in our growth so far. And that's the
Mhm.
philosophy on which we run the company as well.
My goodness, guys, I am shocked. I am shocked to listen to these numbers, to these statistics, to these executions, and to these plannings, dude. I mean, listeners, you really need to learn this from Sreekar because Suraj has given the financial credits to Sreekar. I definitely have to say that you have to pick this up from Sreekar the way he is taking things ahead and he has planned the things till the micro economics and the micro unit pricing, everything of that sort. That is really amazing. And the way they're expanding, and specifically the meetings that he takes. And on this note, I would actually love to mention that very veteran entrepreneurs, they do regular meetings with their lawyers, with their CAs, with their finance guys, and see where the company is going, how the company is working, and all that stuff around that part. So my God, guys, this is really, really amazing what you're doing. Kudos to you, Shrikar. Kudos, yeah. Okay, so guys, why don't you give me another? Okay, huh. So there's another thing that I would want to ask. Yeah, ऐसा नहीं होता that your parents come up and ask you कि यार हमें नहीं पता हमारा लड़का क्या कर रहा है. I heard this a lot of times in the partnership that एक पिताजी दूसरे पिताजी से बोलते हैं पता नहीं क्या करता रहता है समझ ही नहीं आता क्या करता है. Doesn't this happen with you guys?
Yeah, man. So my regular time back home. So I live with my parents right now, and I there's not a single day that I go home before 2 a.m.
Okay.
And my mom leaves to the office to her college at somewhere around 8:30 or 9. So there are months on together, even though we're living in the same house, literally the bedroom next to each other.
Mm,
There are months on that I don't see my mom or parents and stuff like that. And so the one Sunday after 15th, which was like 2 days ago,
mm,
15th December, 15th January is, just to give you context, our biggest deadline. And we process what, 600, 500 applications, 600 applications on just cramping everything, just making sure everything is done last minute, all of that. So
mm.
after 15th December, I think I was meeting my mom after a good solid 2 3 months,
Oh my God.
even though we live in the same house, right?
Okay.
Even today, she comes up to me and says, I don't understand what you need to do that takes up your time and why you need to stay in the office till 2 a.m., 3 a.m. Why can't you just come home on time and eat dinner with me? So these are certain things that, irrespective of what you do, how you grow, there are certain things that they will probably care a lot more about. For
Mm.
example, a simple dinner, than the kind of stuff that we are doing as people who are growing companies and stuff like that.
Okay. Shrikar, what about you?
There have been instances, yeah, and they understand the business, but the specifics of it, not so much. Recently, a lot more. But
Mm-hmm.
there've been instances where where we've had parents come in and visit because they understand that okay, there's this company that is new age and doing this kind of stuff, and they want to get in and speak to us, even though we discourage physical visits. We are completely online. But hota hai na, sometimes parents just want to come
Mm.
and see the people in the office doling out this advice sometimes.
Right.
And we've sent some of our family friends, their kids abroad, without even knowing that they knew my parents, right? It only
Mm.
became a part of conversation later on ki, oh, like he's your son. Okay, we went to him. So a vague idea, yeah. I mean, they know what they're doing. Of course, they don't understand why we have to, work late nights and why we have to stress so much and all of that. But that's the passion of it, right? The company is your baby, pretty much. Like you said,
Absolutely.
this podcast is like your lockdown baby. Gradvine's our baby. We don't want anybody saying that Gradvine's done a bad job. So if that means we
Mm-hmm.
have to stay up till 2 in the morning to please a few people, it absolutely happens. We have terms and conditions in place, like like 15th is a big deadline. You have to send in all documents for our core team to review it. After your
Mm.
mentors approve it, at least 7 days in advance, वरना नहीं होएगा. We
Mm.
get people sending in a document at 10 in the night on the 15th saying it, I want it tonight. And at 10 p.m. we are thinking of tonight kya hai? Matlab it's 10 p.m. Like there is not much left of tonight, my friend. Like 12 ke baad to it's the next day. So I mean, we whine about it, crib about it, it's done. But nobody misses a deadline because of us, because we are that dedicated to the company. Nobody even wrongfully should say that Gradvine has done a bad job. That's our philosophy.
Okay. That's nice. That's really nice. So, guys, ये भसड़े होती रहती है, ठीक है. Okay, one more thing that Suraj, that you pointed out was that you've had these instances, and in Hyderabad specifically, that there are plenty of consultants and plenty of advisors in every nook and corner who sends people, who can advise people how to go out and everything of that sort, right? Now that you guys are doing so well, I'm pretty sure that there you guys would be having a good name in the Hyderabad market also. But what I really want to understand is, how has the market reaction been? How's the cultural reaction been towards you guys as a company? How has these consultants and advisors reacted towards you? And how has this shaped up your mindset? How would you guys be taking ahead of this?
So I can talk to you particularly about the kind of students that we've seen over the last few years come a lot.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, I have not taken out the time to go talk to consultants or other counselors yet. That is probably something that I should put up on my agenda just to see if they've heard of us or not. Like
Okay.
again, that is not something that we care about at all. I think we're in it not as someone who's
Hmm.
trying to force people out of businesses. They are right in their own way, we are right in our own way. I think the space is big enough for more than one person, one company to survive. But the cultural shift that we are seeing is actually not a cultural, I don't know what the term is, but every single year, because of one outstanding year we've had towards the start of our journey, every single year, the toppers of universities like BITS Hyderabad, BITS Pilani, BITS Goa, BITS Dubai, toppers of colleges like Manipal, VIT, some of the IITs, for example, Bombay and Kharagpur. Every year, the toppers of all of these guys come to Gradvine without fail for the last 3 years. And every single
Okay.
one of these guys, when we ask them how did you sort of get to know about Gradvine, they essentially tell us, hey, it's pretty famous. All my seniors, the ones that you guys put last year, essentially talked about it, said that you did a decent job with them, and we're just here to make sure that we are on the right track and going towards the best that we can give for our profiles, right? Which is very very surprising. I don't know, and I'm going out on a limb and assuming a few things here. I don't know if this sort of a cult following exists for any of the other sort of consultancies that are out there,
Hmm.
because of the fact that we've been able to deliver consistently through and through.
Hmm.
The next batch, they take out the time to tell the next batch, hey, ये बंदे बैठे हैं हैदराबाद में हैं, wherever, that is immaterial.
Hmm.
They will put you on to really good people who will give you the most genuine advice there is out there. So go, just take up that free consultation call. That's been the sort of shift that we've seen. We've essentially cornered particular universities
Hmm.
and get a large chunk of our students from these universities at this point in time. And surprisingly, none of these universities are based out of Hyderabad.
I get it. Obviously, that's nice. Okay. Okay. Shrikar, do you want to add anything to it?
Yeah, how consultancies have reacted. So
I don't
we
know.
have a policy, right? On a free consultation call,
Uh,
if somebody is speaking to our sales guys and says, okay, I'm considering these guys and you, we will never say something bad about the other person, right? That
uh,
is a level of business ethics that we maintain. We only
hmm.
tell them that this is the process we follow.
uh,
This is why it's better than that process, right?
right.
How consultancies counter us that, we, because of our ethics, again, we don't write any documents for students. That is
Hmm.
wrong, right? First
Hmm.
thing, it's wrong. That's plagiarism.
Right.
Secondarily, how can somebody who's not even graduated engineering uh,
Hmm.
write an SOP about why you want to pursue a master's in data science? The person who's writing may be an English literature graduate. What does that
Right.
person understand about what courses you want to take, at Stanford, or at Columbia, in core machine learning, and how it's going to help you reach your long-term goals in a particular industry, right? How
Hmm.
are they going to write it? It's just not going to be strong enough. So
Right.
what these consultants do for these sort of students is they directly tell that, Gradvine pe to they don't write anything. You have to write. They only edit, restructure. They only give you advice on how to make it better. They
Hmm.
only you have to write the first draft on your own. All
Hmm.
that sort of publicity is there. But we tell them
mm,
that, listen, if you're getting somebody else to write for you, your own story, your own journey, your own passion in life, you probably don't deserve to get into the university, and you probably
mm,
won't as well. And it's not like we are going to abandon you and just give you feedback like critics. We are going to restructure and tell you exactly how to make your documents better, right? So that is something that
mm,
other consultants use against us. But again, the good students who really want to put in the effort, they understand. They don't want anybody messing with their documents and doing this sort of almost illegal
mm,
stuff, pretty much.
right,
The
right.
second thing is, because of their it's sad, because of that lack of information, right? We tell a student, on a call, like if the profile is good, that you'll get into good universities, you'll get into Duke, you'll get into Cornell.
Mm,
We
mm,
tell them that you have a shot, no guarantees, of course, but you have a shot, go for it. These
mm,
guys, on the other hand, when they go to a competitor, I've had a lot of students come to me and say that, yeah, I spoke to this consultancy again. They told me that Duke and Cornell are not the best programs and that you might have a tie up with them. Matlab reverse humpe. And if the student is smart, both of us have a laugh at it. If the
huh,
student is not, I tell them that, listen, like, I wish I had a tie up with Duke and Cornell. I
huh,
really wish, that I would be minting billions right now if I had a tie up with them, not millions. It would go to billions if I could get you in there for sure. But I
huh,
sadly do not, so I leave it up to your call. So these are the
right.
tactics that we've been exposed to. But yeah, we do not badmouth any other service. We just tell them on the call that this is why we are better, this is why they're not good, but you take a call on it.
Okay, so that.
This goes to the way we do the business and the advising as well.
Mm,
We give the student the best of all of the information,
mm,
and then certain situations in terms of how they can use this information,
mm,
but the decision itself is up to the student. We never force them to go to one program of the other, one university of the other, or anything of that sort. Our role essentially as consultants or as advisors or mentors is to give them all of the information that they need to make a very, very good judgment or a good decision.
mm,
We give you all of the information from the best place possible, which is on the ground. And then once you have that decision, we tell you how to use I mean, once you have all of that information, we'll tell you how to use that information as well, but we will not make the decision itself for you. That's how we've
right,
structured not just the sales process, but also
right.
the offerings within the company.
Wow, that's really amazing, and I would say, uh, hands down to such work ethics, guys. Hands down. Okay, so I guess with that said, the last question, which I really want to ask is, guys, if you could tell me one instance in your entrepreneurial journey which has had a huge impact on you and changed you from top to bottom, what would that be?
Oh,
Yeah.
tough one.
So yeah, I don't think particularly there's going to be one incident that comes up. I think the journey,
Uh,
um it's been what, I mean, I'm sitting down because of the podcast that we are recording. I'm sitting down looking back on all of the journey that I've had so far. But essentially over the last 5 years or so, I don't think there is any one incident that I can just stand out, pick out, and be like, hey, this was the turning point for me. I think everything sort of adds up. And this is what people need to understand when it comes to building companies and building startups. Every
right,
single decision that you take, every single step that you put up, every single thing compounds.
right.
You cannot from day one be very lax and lazy and just before the deadline just whip something out of thin air. That's not going to happen. And
Mm,
so I follow Naval Ravikant a lot. I don't know if that qualifies, if I qualify as one of being part of his cult or whatever. If there is one, I'd love to
mm,
join it.
right,
But he essentially points out that there is no one thing that will ever shape your life. There's series of incidents, decisions, your reactions to those
mm,
incidents, etc.,
right,
that will shape you, that have shaped you. So if you
right,
ask me, it's my upbringing, it's my time in the US, it's all of the learning that I've had at CMU and beyond, at Berkeley, at the governor's office, at Itron, from Sreekar himself, from some of the staff that I work with, from the employees that I work with. So it's just been sort of a compound effect for me. I don't think there's any one incident that will stand out.
okay, Shrika.
Uh, there are a few moments that I would like to point out, which shows me which makes me very grateful and happy because this is something that you've nurtured so very closely, and now this company is giving back to us, right? Be
Mhm.
it monetarily or be it through the moments it's generated, from a time where I was always trying to achieve, trying to create impact, chasing excellence, like I told you from my journey from school. Sometimes failed, sometimes succeeded, but
Right.
small moments like the moment where we have an event where you're launching this new office, wonderful location in town, a beautifully set up place, right? That's a moment that you reflect and look back that okay, this company has given me this moment with my parents, with my friends, with my employees, where I can stand proud. Or at times where the college just called me back to award me, give me an alumni award, essentially, right? A college where
Oh
it all started, with Suraj, right? Where we
yeah.
met in the badminton court about 10 years ago. Now, because of the work with Gradvine, they want to recognize you as an outstanding alumni. I'm there with my wife, who I met in college for the first time, receiving the award. And you sit back in these moments and you think, okay, what has given you this? And it's just this entity you created called Gradvine, right? It's so beautiful that you've nurtured this, you've given birth to this, and today it's giving you back so many moments of joy. And
Mhm.
that itself is something that I think I'm so grateful for, because wherever it goes from now, it's given me moments that I'm going to cherish for a lifetime. And that's
Right.
when you sort of realize that okay, this is what being an entrepreneur is all about. There are definitely going to be more difficult days, more work, and more lows than highs. But boy, when those highs come, they are something else. Those are feelings that will be irreplaceable. And I think that's what's defined my journey. And that's what I'm always, always grateful for this wonderful company, for what it's given back to me.
Oh my God. Oh my God. What a figure. Honestly, what a speech it was. What?
He has a way with words.
I
That's one of the other reasons why the decision to come back to India was pretty easy for me.
Yeah, we are
Sreekar,
great
what a
salesmen first, I think,
speech.
the both of us.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
We know
something
how to
that is a
sell.
common skill. We know how to sell.
But you guys haven't been in the sales industry at all. Like, I mean, none of your backgrounds come down to sales, but still, yeah, great skills. Great skills
Yeah,
you show.
Yeah.
because we know our product inside out. We know ourselves. We know what service we are selling. We can sell. Like
And we
Uh,
can gauge
literally
customers in like 5 minutes of a
5 seconds.
conversation, that this is the spot where we have to hit the person. That's a skill I don't know how I picked up. I don't know how he's picked up, but it's worked out for us.
Yeah.
oh my God, that's really.
Both Sreekar and I wouldn't call ourselves overtly emotional. I don't think we show our emotions at all outside. But the only two instances that I can think of that we sort of were emotional, and our emotions are essentially just restricted to a shake hand. So in undergrad, I remember after so we were the top two people running the conference. I remember after the conference, the day the conference ended, the night, we just we were everyone's gone and we were the last two people. I think, I don't know, just
Clearing the
cleaning up the
trash or
place, I'm
something,
pretty
because
sure.
that's the
Yeah,
kind of people we
cleaning
are.
up the place. And then we essentially shook hands and said, job well done. And then that moment repeated itself. I don't know how many years later, 6 7 years later, when we just opened our new office and the inauguration, the puja and everything was over, and every all of the guests had left and all of that. That was the second time that we essentially shook hands again and said, job well done again. Like,
Oh
so
my God.
6 7 years of time that you essentially spent building a particular thing. Yeah, so yeah.
I get it, but it's like a film, guys. I mean, listeners, believe me, it's like a film. ठीक है? 6 साल पहले, black and white, okay, shaking hands, job well done. और अचानक से color, job well done, new office, change.
Yeah.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. But on this note, honestly, this called for a hug, yeah. Come on.
Virtual hug.
We I don't think we're the kind of people that would ever hug, but okay, yeah, virtual hug.
Cute. Okay, guys. Nice. So that yes, we are at the end of the podcast. Nothing much more left with you, which I would want to ask you guys. You guys have given a lot of insights and listeners, mere pyare listeners. There's so much that you guys need to pick up. My goodness, from these two beautiful heads from one college, right? I mean, बस अब मैं भूल गया हूँ इतना कुछ है ना, मैंने पॉडकास्ट के बीच में ही बोले उठा लो, बट डेफिनेटली आई bring that up once again to on the to sum it up that you guys need to pick up that background doesn't matter. You guys need to pick up that, you know, you need to have a safety net. You guys need to pick up that ideation needs to be very much proper, planning needs to be there, and you guys need to pick up that, you know, you have to sit down with the financial guys and work with them around a lot of part. So प्लस पूरा पॉडकास्ट सुन लेना, मैंने बहुत बार बोला अब क्या-क्या उठाना मैं भूल गया हूँ, ठीक है? बहुत कुछ है इसके साथ तो। Okay, guys, on the last note, if you really have to sum it up, what is your business mantra?
Uh, you're going, Suraj, first?
No.
No. Um, well, I'm not going to give a very emotional one. It's going to be practical advice. Um,
हाँ,
Understand the need for your product, create value. If you're creating value, you will succeed. Secondarily, how are you going to monetize that value? Keep your unit economics proper, and that's the only basis for success. Third, understand your teammates well. Don't jump into anything without really understanding how your partners are going to react in that situation. And four, build a team. Without a team, you're not going to be able to do much, even if it means certain sacrifices monetarily initially. Make sure that you're getting the right resources because they're going to be the superstars of your company in the future. But yeah, I think that's about it. Be committed to the cause, create value, understand how you're going to be making money, and build a team that can make you that money. I think that would sum up very briefly why we've succeeded so far.
Yeah. So I think my 2 cents would be have safety nets throughout.
mhm,
People that tell you entrepreneurship is a lonely journey are absolutely right. Safety nets, both in terms of a financial safety net as well as an emotional slash support net,
mhm.
very, very important. Support cast, absolutely important.
Okay.
Second, know your customer, man. I mean, understanding what service they require even before they require it. I think that has been something that we've been able to tap into at a time when there was no company
Mhm,
doing it the way we were doing it in terms of giving mentors, giving you information from the horse's mouth straight.
mhm,
At a time when no one else was doing that, we were able to do that because we understood, because we had done that, how
mhm,
much of a value add that would be for anyone else who's trying to embark on that same journey.
mhm,
So understand your customers inside and out, and don't be afraid to fail, but have a plan to like learn from those failures.
mhm,
Don't just be like, hey, I have a crore rupees, I will just go and spend it out on something tomorrow and fail and think about the learnings later on.
mhm.
Failure set Don't set yourself up for failure. Failure will happen, that's absolutely fine. Learn from it, move on, but fail fast. Those would be the three things that I'd probably sort of sum it up.
ओके, सो मैंने सम कर दिया, श्रीकर सूरज ने सम अप कर दिया। इससे ज़्यादा क्या चाहते हो? ज़्यादा पसंद आ रहा है तो हैदराबाद जाके मिल के आ जाओ, ठीक है? कोई बात नहीं, मैं बोल दूँगा ऑफ़िस खुल जाएगा तो
Or schedule a free consultation call on the website.
yes, that is definitely there. Look up for Gradvine, guys. These I am very much sure कि इससे अच्छी कंसल्टेंसी तुम्हें नहीं मिलने वाली। तो चुपचाप चले जाना, ठीक है? This is the best thing I can say for these guys because not me, honestly. The business speaks for itself. Okay? I don't want to talk about it because their work speaks for itself. Their journey speaks for itself, and I'm no one to comment on it. But the work is so good that I would love to comment and say, do go. If you're planning to go abroad, do check them out. Do have a word. Get the free consultation, check them out. Do that. Thank you so much, Sreekar and Suraj, for coming up on the show. It's been a sheer pleasure talking to you guys. A very mindful, inspirational journey you guys have had and taught me a lot. Anna, and what else? Badminton khelte रहना, please. Okay.
We do that actually. We do that quite a lot
Okay.
now.
So go for the badminton matches. Enjoy. Thank you so much once again. I would love to see you guys very soon. If you guys come to Delhi, let me know. I would love to catch up with you. Looking forward
Yeah.
to meeting you soon. Thank you once again. Take care.
Absolutely, Sarthak. Thank you so much. It was lovely.
Thank you for having us, man.
Bye.
Take care.
I hope that you're able to take back something insightful from this podcast and apply it in your life to be a better version of yourself and add to your Dhandho Ni Soch. If you know someone whom you think should feature on my podcast and has a very inspiring entrepreneurial journey, then do drop me a DM on my Instagram, SarthakVarshney. Sarthak Varshney. Yeah, that's me. I'm the founder of SV Clicks, and SV Clicks is the producer of this show. You can find me on Facebook or LinkedIn as well with the same name. If you're willing to listen to more of such unheard, inspiring stories of the entrepreneurs, then don't forget to follow us by pressing that follow button on your podcast screen. Thank you for being such an amazing audience. Keep learning, keep growing. We'll be back soon. See ya.